Chapter 1693. Stay here. Chapter 1693. Stay here. Heaven's burial lost? How did it happen so quickly? Falling Fire was stupefied when he heard Daybreak Fog's final sentence. He simply could not fathom how such an outcome had occurred. Heaven's Burial had sent over 300,000 players and 100,000 evil demons to siege Stone Forest Town. The army had even included 5 mythic-ranked monsters. With such a force, even capturing a guild city should be a problem, much less a guild town. Furthermore, the battle at Stone Forest Town had begun and ended in less than half an hour. Even killing 400,000 common monsters would take more time than that. Yet he had just learned that Heaven's Burial had lost in such a short time. No matter how he thought about it, he simply couldn't bring himself to believe Daybreak Fog's claim. Moreover, Singular Burial had confidently assured him that they could last another 5 minutes, but only 3 minutes had passed since that conversation, and the battle was over. For a moment, he even wondered if Singular Burial was toying with him. However, with how much Heaven's Burial had riding on this battle, Falling Fire doubted that Singular Burial would make such a joke. If Singular Burial were really joking, only Heaven's Burial would suffer for it. Should we retreat? Qin Muyun, the woman beside Falling Fire, asked. She wore a suit of silver plate armor and carried a buckler engraved with divine runes. No. How can we possibly just leave after spending all of that time and effort to get this far? Even if Heaven's Burial is heavily wounded, Zero Wing shouldn't fare much better. Let's go and take a look. If there is a chance of victory, we can use the opportunity to capture Stone Forest Town, Falling Fire said, shaking his head. Moreover, we have the advanced magic array, Magic Dragon's Descent. Mythic evil demons and beasts can't compare to the Magic Dragon. Not even a city's defensive magic array can last more than a few hits against it. Capturing Stone Forest Town will be child's play. Qin Muyun nodded her agreement. This time, their superiors had instructed them to show Zero Wing and everyone else in God's domain the consequences for provoking Blackwater. Although Heaven's Burial's swift defeat had been a surprise, it was not exactly impossible. The majority of Heaven's Burial's evil demon army consisted of recently spawned demons, which still sorely lacked strength. Meanwhile, Heaven's Burial's player army only had around 170,000 elite members, while the rest were normal guild members. As for the guild's experts, Heaven's Burial had only dispatched around 5,000 due to the losses the guild suffered in Ancient Rock City. On the other hand, Blackwater had dispatched over 6,000 experts and 10,000 elite players. In addition, the army had 5 Tier 2 experts: Falling Fire, Laughing Drunkard, Lethal Gale, First Ghost, and Qin Muyun. With their arrangement of 1 Tier 2 Shield Warrior, 2 Tier 2 Berserkers, and 1 Tier 2 Assassin, they could offer the support to allow Falling Fire to display the full strength of a Tier 2 Elementalist. In contrast, Heaven's Burial only had 3 Tier 2 players, and there wasn't a single MT among them. They had also brought with them 8 catapults. Even if they had to face 2 or 3 mythic monsters, they had a high chance of victory. Falling Fire and Blackwater's forces immediately increased their pace towards Stone Forest Town. After running for nearly 1 minute, the army arrived at the top of a slope some distance away from Stone Forest Town. However, as Falling Fire began to organize his troops and advance on the town, he heard the sound of a massive explosion. The forest ahead of him trembled with the force of the explosion, and after a moment, a towering pillar of light destroyed the blast surrounding terrain. Pitch-black fire devoured the nearby trees in the blink of an eye, leaving only cinders behind. When the light pillar faded, Falling Fire's team spotted a 50-meter-tall evil earth dragon laying in the ashes. The evil earth dragon's HP had already reached 0, and its entire body had burned to black. Deep cuts scored the evil earth dragon's entire body, with some so deep that one could even see the mythic monster's white bones. Several hundred of these deep gouges decorated the evil earth dragon's form. Blackwater's members gasped when they saw this corpse's miserable state. The light pillar had also killed hundreds of evil demons and players. However, that wasn't the worst part. Despite these players clearly being dead, their translucent souls still occupied the battlefield. Meanwhile, these souls were in agony as the pitch-black flames continued to burn them. Seeing this, ordinary players might not realize what was happening, but the large guild's upper echelons and experts understood very well. This was a soul attack, and any player the attack killed would lose more than just 1 level. It was very likely that these players wouldn't be able to log back into God's domain for some time. Meanwhile, 3 gigantic figures stood beside the evil Earth Dragon's corpse. Each of these figures was 30 meters tall, and they all held crimson long swords in their right hands, the blades of which were wrapped in pitch-black fire. Once they saw their prey's corpse, the 3 Baphomets split up and charged at the nearby evil demons and Heaven's Burial members. Every time the Baphomets swung their swords, dozens of evil demons and players lost their lives. None of these evil demons or players could withstand a single hit from the high demons. The 3 Baphomets were like demon gods as they slaughtered the evil demons and Heaven's Burial members. Only the half HP mythic evil beasts could hold off a high demon for any length of time. However, despite only 1 Baphomet facing off against the 2 remaining mythic evil beasts, the latter lost HP rapidly. It was only a matter of time before they died. Falling Fire and the others wore somber expressions as they watched this scene. The 3 level 80 mythic ranked high demons even overwhelmed the evil Earth Dragons. Before these monsters, players were a joke. Falling Fire finally understood why Heaven's Burial had been defeated so quickly. How is Zero Wing so powerful? Falling Fire was greatly confused as he watched the 3 Baphomets slaughter Heaven's Burial's forces. Obtaining one such powerful monster was already extremely difficult, yet Zero Wing had command of 3 of them. Not even super guilds were capable of such a feat. Blackwater's members? Xueqi, who stood some distance behind the Baphomets, quickly noticed the spectating crowd on a distant hillside. Since you're here, you should stay here forever. Saying so, Xueqi instructed 2 of the Baphomets to charge at Blackwater's army. The Baphomets he had summoned had a very short duration of 5 hours. Since Blackwater's forces had already arrived, he didn't mind taking them out. Fortunately, Heaven's Burial was no longer a threat to Zero Wing. He could finish off its members after taking out the larger threat, Blackwater's forces. Damn it! Falling Fire shouted. Watching the 2 Baphomets dash towards them, Falling Fire could easily guess what Xueqi had in mind. Immediately he commanded, "Summon the magic dragon. Activate the defensive magic array." Agreeing with Falling Fire's decision, Qin Muyun notified the players responsible for the 2 magic arrays. She had already witnessed the Baphomet's strength. If 2 of these monsters were allowed to charge into Blackwater's ranks, the consequences would be unimaginable. The only way to stop the 2 approaching high demons was to summon the magic dragon and use their defensive magic array. Suddenly, a colossal silver magic array appeared in the sky. A moment later, a dragon covered in pitch-black scales and silver runes manifested before Blackwater's army. Magic Dragon Clan, High Inferior Dragon, Mythic. Level 75. HP 420, 000, 000/420, 000, 000. The magic dragon's aura was visibly stronger than that of ordinary mythic monsters. It could basically rival a mythic-ranked archaic species of the same level. The level 80 evil Earth Dragons simply couldn't compare to this monster. This was also why Falling Fire was confident in capturing Stone Forest Town despite Heaven's Burial's defeat. When the magic dragon joined the battlefield, 100 players in Blackwater's army spread out along the army's edges before activating a defensive magic array. A magic barrier then formed and enveloped the army. A moment after Blackwater's army deployed its offensive and defensive measures, the 2 Baphomets reached the army like a powerful gale. One of the 2 Baphomets then leaped into the air, transforming into a blur as it arrived before the magic dragon. The high demon then swung down its crimson long sword, and the weapon tore apart space as it moved down towards the high inferior dragon's head. Although Clan tried to block the attack with one of its claws, it was repelled the moment its claw met the blazing, crimson long sword. The crimson long sword then proceeded to smash into the magic dragon's head and slam it straight toward the ground, the resulting impact carving out a huge crater in the earth below. Meanwhile, the other Baphomet arrived before Blackwater's defensive magic array. As the high demon raised its long sword, the pitch-black flames along the blade flared. As the Baphomet commanded, a raging pillar of black fire descended on Blackwater's magic barrier. When the flames met the barrier, the attack formed a massive slice across it. Smaller, web-like cracks began to spread out around the cut, crawling across the entire magic barrier. Chapter 1694. One hit to destroy a magic array. Chapter 1694. One hit to destroy a magic array. In the dense forest some distance away from Stone Forest Town. Under Singular Burial's command, Heaven's Burial's members had scattered and fled into the forest. By doing so, more members would escape with their lives. Zero Wings members could only operate within the movement-type defensive magic array, and only the 3 Baphomets were truly capable of giving chase. Ha! Why are Blackwater's people here? Daybreak Fog, who maneuvered around the forest, was confused to see Falling Fire's group on a distant hillside. Have they lost their minds? They actually came. She had clearly told Blackwater not to come and to regroup at the barrier's exit. They'd only stand a chance against Zero Wing once they combined their forces. Foolish. Absolutely foolish. How can Blackwater employ such fools? Singular Burial could not help but curse out loud when he saw Falling Fire's distant figure. He had already gotten a taste of Zero Wing's true strength. He had hoped to regroup with Blackwater's army and the evil demon army guarding the barrier's exit before resuming their battle against his hateful enemy. However, the fools from Blackwater had refused to listen to his advice and continued towards the battlefield. If Zero Wing decimated Blackwater's forces now, this war was as good as over. Heaven's Burial would lose all hope of capturing Stone Forest Town. Before Singular Burial could contact Falling Fire and demand an explanation from the foolish elementalist, he noticed 2 of the rampaging Baphomets leave the battlefield and charge straight for the hillside Blackwater's army resided on. Seeing this, Singular Burial fell into a thorough despair. However, before the 2 Baphomets had reached Blackwater's army, a mythic-ranked magic dragon descended from the sky. Despite such a vast distance between him and the high inferior dragon, Singular Burial could feel the horrific pressure the monster gave off, and he couldn't help but shudder. Layer after layer of translucent magic barrier enveloped Blackwater's entire army. In the blink of an eye, a triple barrier had formed to protect the army. At a glance, one could easily tell that the triple barrier was the product of a high-ranked defensive magic array. Guild leader, Blackwater seems to be taking Zero Wing seriously this time. They've even used 2 of their trump cards. Based on our information, those 2 magic arrays were rewards Blackwater obtained after completing an epic main storyline quest. The guild had to expend a lot of resources and manpower to complete it, Daybreak Fog said, slightly surprised to see the 2 magic arrays that had formed around Blackwater's forces. The summoned magic dragon should have the power to rival a mythic-ranked archaic species of the same level, and the defensive magic array is an advanced magic array. It can block even Tier 4 attacks with ease. With those 2, we might stand a chance against Zero Wing. Some of Heaven's Burial's upper echelons breathed a sigh of relief when they heard Daybreak Fog's explanation. Singular Burial's eyes shone with joy. If they had a mythic-ranked archaic species on their side to fight with their forces and the 2 remaining evil earth dragons, they should be able to keep Zero Wing at bay for quite some time. Once the other evil demon army arrived, it might even be possible to suppress the 3 Baphomets. Moreover, the Baphomets wouldn't be able to clash their armies for some time with the advanced defensive magic array to protect them. They could then use the opportunity to bombard Zero Wing's defensive magic array with Blackwater's 8 catapults. Zero Wing's defensive magic array wouldn't last long against them. As Singular Burial prepared to order his scattered forces to regroup with Blackwater, something unbelievable occurred. One of the 2 Baphomets that had assaulted Blackwater's army had sent the level 75 magic dragon crashing, face first, into the ground with a single attack. Meanwhile, the other Baphomet released a powerful strike against Blackwater's defensive magic array. Although the triple barrier did not fall, cracks webbed the entire barrier. For a moment, the world seemed to have fallen silent. How is this possible? Even Falling Fire and his Blackwater companions were dumbfounded, not to mention Singular Burial and his upper echelons. Their eyes bulged as they stared at the damage. A monster that rivaled a mythic-ranked archaic species had been thrown, face first, to the ground. A mythic-ranked archaic species was practically invincible to current players. However, that wasn't what shocked them most. The Baphomet's ability to damage an advanced defensive magic array's barrier so severely with a single attack was unbelievable. Falling Fire and the other Blackwater members even wondered if the system had tricked them, awarding some cheap knockoff. What Falling Fire and the others did not know was that a high demon was a demon with a noble lineage. High demons were akin to emperors among demons, and their life ratings were even higher than archaic species. Only dragons and ferocious beasts could hope to triumph over a high demon. Furthermore, Xuefeng's Baphomets had been reinforced with the Bible of Darkness. Their strength was far higher than the mythic-ranked magic dragons, and in a frontal clash, it was only natural that the magic dragon clan had lost. The advanced defensive magic array was indeed capable of blocking a normal Tier 4 attack, but the attack Baphomet had used had been a Tier 4 taboo skill. Including the Bible of Darkness's buff, the Tier 4 taboo skill could rival a Tier 5 attack, which was already far beyond the defensive magic array's endurance limit. It's not broken? What a powerful defensive magic array! Xuefeng was slightly surprised as he watched Blackwater's defensive magic array slowly mending itself. He had never thought that Blackwater could acquire such a powerful advanced magic array. However, Falling Fire and his companions were truly shocked. Not only had Baphomet's attack severely damaged their defensive magic array, but the players maintaining the magic array had also lost 1/3 of their mana pools. Unlike Zero Wing's movement-type defensive magic array, which was machine-operated, their players had to maintain their magic array. Hence, the energy needed to mend and maintain the array came from the player's mana. If even one of these players ran out of mana, the magic array would stop working and disappear. Players could only rely on mana recovery potions to replenish their mana stores. However, mana recovery potions had considerably long cooldowns, and they only restored a small amount of mana. Meanwhile, after seeing its first attack failing, the Baphomet attacking the defensive magic array promptly followed up with another Tier 4 skill. Although the skill was no match for a Tier 4 taboo skill, it still drained a significant amount of mana from the players maintaining the magic array. Meanwhile, the other Baphomet continued to bombard the magic dragon, pushing it back and tearing one pained cry after another from the monster. At this point, Falling Fire snapped out of his daze and hurriedly commanded, "Attack! Fire the catapults!" The players controlling the catapults immediately aimed and fired at the Baphomet attacking their magic barrier. The catapults were extremely powerful, and with normal ammunition, their attacks had the power of Tier 4 strikes. If loaded with special ammunition, the war weapons attacks would reach the peak of Tier 4. These attacks could even heavily injure mythic monsters, and their only downside was their long 2-minute cooldown. Suddenly, 8 gigantic flaming boulders flew towards the Baphomet attacking the defensive magic array. Just before one of the flaming boulders, decorated with divine runes, struck the high demon, the latter lightly swung its crimson long sword. Boom! The moment the edge of blade met the flaming boulder, Baphomet was forced to take 3 steps back as a damage of over -100,000 appeared above its head. However, the clash had failed to inflict any negative effects, such as a temporary numbing. Following which, Baphomet rapidly brandished its long sword to strike down the rest of the incoming boulders, one after another. Each time it blocked an attack, it was forced to retreat several steps, and the Baphomet only stabilized itself after taking a few dozen steps backward. How can a monster be so powerful? Regret gripped Falling Fire's heart as he watched the Baphomet only lose a little over 1 million HP after receiving all 8 attacks. Why had he so foolishly rushed over here? Before Falling Fire could snap out of his daze, the targeted Baphomet advanced and assaulted the defensive magic array again. The players maintaining the magic array continued to lose mana, and although Falling Fire and his players tried to retaliate, the High Demon simply shrugged off their attacks. Retreat! Retreat with the magic array! We cannot remain here any longer. Falling Fire shouted anxiously, his expression somber. Although he hated to admit it, even a fool could tell that only death awaited them should they continue this battle. Their wisest option was a quick retreat while the defensive magic array still stood. Although moving the magic array would significantly deplete its energy, it was better than standing here and doing nothing. Don't even think you can flee that easily. When Xuefeng saw Blackwater's army began its retreat, he immediately commanded Anna to use angel summoning. A moment later, a Valkyrie with white feathered wings descended onto the battlefield. A Valkyrie's life rating was even higher than a High Demon's, but how much strength the summoned Valkyrie could exhibit largely depended on Anna's basic attributes. Fortunately, Anna had already activated Yin-Yang power, which allowed the Valkyrie's combat power to reach a height like never before. The Valkyrie's 2 sets of wings shuddered slightly before she vanished from where she stood. A second later, she reappeared before Blackwater's army, radiating a horrific aura that was even stronger than the 2 Baphomets. Suddenly, a spear of thunder formed in the Valkyrie's hand before she tossed it at Blackwater's magic barrier. Pang! 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 Three crisp sounds echoed throughout the forest as a hole formed in the three incomparably powerful protective barriers. The spear then struck one of the players maintaining the array before it exploded. Boom! Countless arcs of golden lightning scattered, devouring everything in its path. Any players this lightning touched were vaporized instantly. With just one attack, the Valkyrie had killed over 500 Blackwater members. Meanwhile, the advanced defensive magic array could no longer operate as it lost one of its operators, and it began to fade out of existence. Staring at the Valkyrie before him, Falling Fire's expression became more solemn than ever before. When Singular Burial and the other Heaven's Burial members saw this from within the forest, horror flashed in their eyes. With one attack, the Valkyrie had destroyed an advanced defensive magic array that could even stop a mythic ranked monster's attacks. Chapter 1695. Heaven's Burial Crumbles. Chapter 1695. Heaven's Burial Crumbles. When the triple barrier Blackwater's advanced defensive magic array had created began to fade, the various major powers members, who watched the battle through magic water mirrors, expressed their shock and horror. The three Baphomet's Xueqi had summoned were impossibly strong. But even one of their full-powered attacks had only cracked the defensive magic array's outermost barrier. On the other hand, the Valkyrie had destroyed the entire defensive magic array with one attack. If the Valkyrie were used to siege a guild town or city, just thinking about it made them shudder. It was entirely possible that the Valkyrie would only need one attack to break a city's defensive magic array. Just how many secrets has Zero Wing hidden? Singular Burial was nearly traumatized as he watched Blackwater's defensive magic array crumble. Countless guilds dreamed of wielding the power to destroy a city's defensive magic array. Breaking a city's defensive magic array was, after all, the most important part of trying to capture a city. When Xueqi had destroyed ancient Rock City's defensive magic arrays, he had chalked it up to the man finding some precious treasure, and a treasure like that would only have limited uses. Once the usage counts were exhausted, the treasure would disappear. Yet, Xueqi had replicated that feat with a summoned Valkyrie one of his personal guards controlled. This had an entirely different meaning than summoning such power with a consumable. The Valkyrie had been called with a skill, which meant that Zero Wing could summon the monster indefinitely, only limited by the skill's cooldown. Sure enough, that Valkyrie is really powerful. The fact that the Valkyrie had destroyed an advanced defensive magic array even surprised Xueqi. However, he doubted that the Valkyrie could destroy a city's defensive magic array. At the very least, she'd need to use more than one attack. An advanced defensive magic array, which players had to maintain, and a city's defensive magic array were two very different things. A player-maintained defensive magic array had the advantage that it could be deployed at any given time. However, its flaws were obvious. First, there was the problem of mana consumption. Second, no harm must come to the players maintaining the magic array. Otherwise, the magic array would crumble. Although the Valkyrie's full-powered attack had pierced a hole in Blackwater's defensive magic array, it had failed to destroy the magic array entirely. The attack had merely drained a considerable amount of mana from the maintaining players. The attack had only destroyed the barrier because it had killed a few of the players maintaining it. This wouldn't happen with a city's defensive magic array. At most, the Valkyrie's attack would deplete some of the magic array's energy. Meanwhile, since Blackwater's army had lost its defensive magic array's protection, it had no way to deal with the High Demon before it. Each time Baphomet swung its crimson long sword, it reaped the lives of over 100 players. After the players died, Baphomet's soul fire continued to burn their immortal souls. In the blink of an eye, Baphomet had killed over 1,000 players. Falling Fire's heart bled when he saw this. Blackwater had dispatched 20,000 players to capture Stone Forest Town, 6,000 of which were guild-nurtured experts. It was one thing if these experts died, but if their immortal souls were damaged, they'd be prevented from logging into God's domain for several days. This would be a massive loss for the guild. With no better choice, Falling Fire could only follow Heaven's Burial's example and order a retreat, telling his men to scatter. Only one Baphomet had targeted the force, and even if the High Demon were very fast, it could only kill a limited number of players if everyone ran in different directions. Seeing this, Xueqi sneered and waved a hand. Suddenly, hundreds of miniature ballistas launched their exploding arrows at Blackwater's members, each arrow containing power at the peak of Tier 2. When Blackwater's members saw the volley of arrows rain down on them, they felt their scalps tingle. After a series of explosions, the hillside became a barren wasteland covered in small craters and scorched earth. Although Blackwater's members had responded to the volley very quickly, over 2,000 players had died in the first wave of arrows. The miniature ballista's effect was wondrous. Watching volley after volley of exploding arrows rain down on his forces, falling fire turned to flash Xueqi a chilling glare as he fled. His forces had suffered a tragic loss. Against the several hundred miniature ballistas' continued bombardment and the High Demon's pursuit, he'd be lucky to leave this battlefield with less than half of his original army if they escaped at all. Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's forces continued to scatter, running all the way to the Sealing Barrier's single exit. Naturally, Xueqi ordered his guild members to chase the two guilds down, leaving scorched earth and corpses in their wake. As they watched Zero Wing's members chase hundreds of thousands of players relentlessly, the crowd in Stone Forest Town was stupefied. Ruthless. Zero Wing was utterly ruthless. This was the crowd's evaluation of Zero Wing. Normally, after one side won a guild war, it would only chase its enemy for 10 or so minutes if it wanted to exploit its victory. Chasing the enemy players for any longer than that could lead to unnecessary losses. Yet Zero Wing ran after Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's members for over half an hour, hunting the two guilds' forces to the Sealing Barrier's exit. In the end, Zero Wing had slaughtered every mythic evil demon and mythic evil beast Heaven's Burial had sent to the Stoneclaw Mountains. The guild didn't even spare the mythic monsters that had guarded the Sealing Barrier's exit. All evil demon above Lord rank had been annihilated as well. Meanwhile, Zero Wing suffered 0 casualties throughout this entire battle. If they told other players of this battle, those players would likely assume they were either joking or bragging. However, such a miraculous battle had indeed occurred before them. 3 Baphomets guarded the exit of the barrier, sealing off the Stoneclaw Mountains, preventing anyone from leaving the map. Any player or evil demon that tried to approach the exit was killed or sent flying. No one was allowed past these high demons. Black Flame. Don't go too far. Singular Burial bellowed as he glowered at Xueqi, who stood within Zero Wing's movement-type defensive magic array. The Sealing Barrier's exit wasn't particularly large. Normally, 10 or so evil demons was enough to block it off completely. The Baphomets with their gigantic frames easily guarded the exit, and with their outrageous strength, Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's forces had no hope of leaving the Stoneclaw Mountains. Their forces could only watch as Zero Wing's miniature ballistas slowly approached. Black Flame, we have lost. We have already chosen to retreat from the Stoneclaw Mountains. By trying to exterminate us all, do you intend to fight Blackwater until the bitter end? Falling Fire demanded as he glared at Xueqi. Going too far? In an indifferent tone, Xueqi responded, not only have your two guilds worked together to target Zero Wing time after time, but you've enclosed the Stoneclaw Mountains in a barrier to kill our members back to level 0. Did you not consider that your actions were a bit much? If I let you off the hook so easily today, what will other guilds think of Zero Wing? Thus, I invite every one of you to stay with us. Saying so, Xueqi waved his hand, and hundreds of exploding arrows rained down on Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's remaining members. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions echoed throughout the valley. With no power to fight back, Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's members could only run and scatter. Good. Very good. Black Flame, you forced me to do this. Singular Burial descended into madness as he watched one of his guild's experts and elites die after another. Since Heaven's Burial is finished, Flame Blood, detonate Beast Emperor's evil energy magic array. I want the map to become a graveyard. We'll drag Zero Wing to hell with us. Shortly after Singular Burial issued the command, runes began to appear above the Stoneclaw Mountains. The evil energy within the map went berserk, gathering in the array Beast Emperor had previously constructed. The earth trembled as the terrifying power concentrated. It felt as if Armageddon had come to the Stoneclaw Mountains. Lunatic. Falling Fire cursed when he heard Singular Burial's crazy plan. The man was going to drag him to hell as well. Because of this turn of events, Zero Wing's members wore somber expressions. They could all feel the horrific power concentrating at the gigantic magic array near the exit of the Sealing Barrier. If the magic array exploded, the consequences would be dire. Die. Singular Burial began to laugh maniacally when he saw the fear on Zero Wing's faces. Once the magic array was set to detonate, it would transform everything within a 5,000-yard radius into a land of dead. Moreover, evil energy would corrupt players' souls after they died in the explosion. Even if some players survived, evil energy would contaminate their being, and they'd suffer a weakened state. Players that died would also suffer a weakened state. This weakened state would relent until players removed the evil energy from their bodies, which would take a considerable amount of time. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the air. It was none other than Xueqi, who had used a blink scroll. Once in the air, Xueqi pointed Killing Ray at the magic array collecting evil energy. Then, a pitch-black barrier formed, enveloping the array and gradually dissipating the gathering mana and evil energy. Forbidden Domain. Without the support of external mana, the magic array couldn't self-destruct. Don't think that you can die so easily while you stand before me. Xueqi growled as he charged into the evil energy-filled magic array. Evil energy was incredibly toxic to ordinary players, and at high concentrations, it could even kill players upon contact. However, the moment Xueqi entered the magic array's range, he activated Absolute Domain, becoming immune to all forms of damage. After setting foot in the magic array's range, the golden divine runes surrounding Xueqi began to crackle as they fought off the surrounding evil energy's corrosion. What powerful evil energy! Xueqi couldn't help his surprise when he noticed the evil energy begin to corrode the divine runes. His absolute domain could even stop Tier 4 mythic monsters' attacks, yet this magic array's evil energy slowly, but surely corroded the skill. The power of the concentrated evil energy here nearly had the power of a Tier 5 spell. Not even ordinary mythic monsters would dare approach this magic array with such power. Only evil beasts and evil demons had any hope of survival within it. The evil energy's corrosion increased as time passed. Not daring to waste any more time, Xueqi charged toward the center of the magic array and slashed at the staff there with one of his blades. Thunder Flame Explosion. Boom! When the lightning and fire collided with their target, the staff inserted into the ground shattered, leaving only a dark gray crystal covered with purple gold runes behind. When the core of the magic array shattered, the array began to vanish. Following which, the sound of a system notification reached Xueqi's ears. Chapter 1696. Shaking Star Moon Kingdom. Chapter 1696. Shaking Star Moon Kingdom. System. Congratulations! You have successfully destroyed the evil god's sealing magic array, and stopped an evil energy passage from opening. Rewarding 100 humanity reputation points and 10,000 war god's temple merit points. Xueqi was slightly surprised when he heard the system notification. He had never expected to earn 100 humanity reputation points and 10,000 war god's temple merit points for just destroying a magic array. War god's temple merit points were extremely valuable. With 4,000 points, one could purchase an ordinary epic item from the temple. However, Xueqi did not spare the matter much thought as he snatched up the runic crystal and dashed away from the magic array. Although the magic array had already been destroyed, the evil energy it had gathered still lingered in the area. Once the evil energy ate through Absolute Domain's protection, not even a Tier 2 player like himself could survive the concentrated energy. Meanwhile, outside the magic array, Singular Burial, who had truly gone mad, was stupefied when he noticed the magic array disappear. Flame Blood, who controlled the evil demons from a hidden location, also gaped in shock. How is that possible? The color in Flame Blood's face drained when he noticed the gathered evil energy in the magic array gradually dissipate. Is he really a player? The sealing magic array Beast Emperor had used to entrap the Stoneclaw Mountains was extraordinary. The evil energy inside the array had become so dense after sacrificing 400,000 players that not even an evil god's apostle like Flame Blood dared to enter its range. Any player not belonging to the evil god's temple would seal their own fate if they approached the magic array. Yet, not only had Xueqi survived inside it, but he had also destroyed the magic array. Although the silencing skill Xueqi had used prevented the magic array's detonation, that was only temporary. Once the silencing skill's duration ended, Flame Blood could simply detonate the magic array again and transform this map into a cemetery. However, now that the magic array had been destroyed, that wasn't possible. Due to the magic array's destruction, the barrier over the Stoneclaw Mountains map lifted. As a result, the blue sky returned as every player watched. Communication with the outside world also became possible again. The seal has lifted? How is this possible? Did Heaven's Burial win? Quick! Notify the higher-ups. The various large guilds members, who were stationed outside of the barrier, were surprised when the pitch-black magic barrier around the regional dungeons suddenly disappeared. They immediately contacted their superiors. However, before they could report the situation, a large number of players burst out of the other end of the valley as terrified as if they had just seen a ghost. These fleeing players wore either Heaven's Burial's emblem or Blackwater's. A moment later, another large group of players charged out of the Stoneclaw Mountains. Although the second group had fewer players than the first, the second group's momentum was imposing. These players fiercely hunted down Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's fleeing members. What's going on? Why are Zero Wings members the ones pursuing Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's members? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Did Heaven's Burial and Blackwater lose? That shouldn't be possible, right? Those two guilds sent in so many players, and they had the help of their evil demon army. How could they possibly lose? The spectating players had never even considered the possibility that Zero Wing would defeat Heaven's Burial and Blackwater. The evil demon army was simply too strong. It wasn't a force current players could defeat. Furthermore, Heaven's Burial and Blackwater far outnumbered Zero Wing. Capturing Stone Forest Town would be a piece of cake for these two guilds. How could they possibly end up running away from Zero Wing? Moreover, Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's members fled with such desperation. Before these players could think of a proper explanation, 3 30-meter-tall, humanoid monsters charged out of the valley ahead. Every one of these humanoid monsters radiated a horrific aura, and as they left the valley, they chased after Heaven's Burial and Blackwater's players. Each time they swung their crimson long swords, they took the lives of dozens or even hundreds of players. Nobody could stop the three monsters' rampage as screams echoed throughout the valley. When the spectators took a closer look at the Baphomet statistics, they couldn't help but shudder and gasp. Mythic monsters. However, before they could recover from their shock, they noticed translucent figures hovering above the players' corpses. Pitch-black fire burned these translucent figures, and a sense of dread overwhelmed the spectating players. Ordinary players might not recognize this phenomenon, but guild players like them were no strangers to the scene. Evidently, the Baphomets used soul attacks, and any players they killed with the attack would suffer more than a single lost level. Meanwhile, there were 3 of these monsters. Quick! Report this to the higher-ups. Some of the players who reacted quickly shouted. News of the barrier around the Stoneclaw Mountains lifting quickly spread to Star Moon Kingdom's various large guilds. And it wasn't the only news they received. Battle videos of the heaven-defying fight that had occurred outside of Stone Forest Town also found their way into the upper echelon's mailboxes. These videos clearly displayed the full development of the war between Zero Wing and Heaven's Burial. Despite these upper echelons' experience in numerous field battles, team battles, and even guild wars, when they watched the fight outside of Stone Forest Town, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Watching Xueqi resist Heaven's Burial's war weapons was particularly mind-blowing. No player had ever done anything like it, yet Xueqi had achieved the feat effortlessly. The strength and defense he displayed were simply unheard of. In addition, the guild's upper echelons watched the 3 Baphomets annihilate the mythic evil demon and 4 mythic evil beasts, and 1 Tier 3 or Tier 4 large-scale destruction spell fall on the battlefield after another. Seeing several hundred miniature ballistas fire their arrows as one was also spectacular. Overall, the battle had completely transformed the terrain outside of Stone Forest Town. Guild experts had been little more than ants in the battle, unable to accomplish anything. In the Star Alliance's residence in Star Moon City. So, Heaven's Burial has been defeated? Galaxy Past revealed a bitter smile when he received news of Zero Wing's victory. Now, no one in Star Moon Kingdom can stop Zero Wing. Guild leader, did you predict that Heaven's Burial would lose from the very beginning? Purple Eye asked curiously. Based on Galaxy Past's tone, he didn't seem surprised by this war's outcome. No, I didn't know, but I had a feeling that Zero Wing wouldn't lose. The guild has performed many miracles since its establishment, and there's nothing surprising about it performing one more, Galaxy Past said, shaking his head. However, Zero Wing's performance this time did surpass even my expectations. Despite facing such a powerful force, it still won so effortlessly, even killing over 200,000 Heaven's Burial members and 15,000 players from Blackwater. The various superpowers following the war between the two guilds were shocked when they learned of its outcome. Zero Wing. They still had such a trump card? It's no wonder why the guild rejected our kind-hearted offer. Yuan Tianxin paled as he watched the three Baphomets in the video before him. High demons. He had only read about this type of demon in the libraries he had visited. High demons were emperors among demons. Their life ratings were even higher than archaic species. Yet Zero Wing had summoned 3 of these high demons. It was only natural that Heaven's Burial had lost. After this war, Star Moon Kingdom's various major powers, as well as those operating in secret within the kingdom, realized that Zero Wing had grown past its status as a fledgling guild. Now, Zero Wing's development in Star Moon Kingdom was truly unstoppable. The guild had proven its foundations to join the ranks of the various superpowers and compete for hegemony in God's domain. Xueqi had returned to White River City with the loot he had obtained from the mythic evil demons and mythic evil beasts. He hadn't stayed in the Stoneclaw Mountains to participate in the cleanup battle. Heaven's Burial's main force was already finished, and Blackwater had lost over 80% of the experts it had dispatched. Baphomet's soul fire had even claimed many of them. Once the resurrected and could log back into the game, they'd be essentially crippled for a considerable time. From today onward, neither of these two guilds would find any success in Star Moon Kingdom. In fact, Heaven's Burial might even have trouble continuing in the game at all. After returning to White River City, Xueqi retrieved his latest bounty, looking through the items with shining eyes. This was especially true when his gaze fell on the dark gray crystal covered in runes. When he had picked the crystal up earlier, he had still been surrounded by dense evil energy. He hadn't had the time to inspect his harvest properly. Now, however, he could feel how frightening this dark gray, runic crystal truly was. The concentrated energy within was astonishing, even surpassing the mana within 7 luminaries crystals. Comparing a 7 luminaries crystal's energy levels to this dark gray crystal was like comparing a candle flame to a forest fire. It felt as if this single crystal contained the power of an entire world. What is this thing? Xueqi muttered curiously as he inspected the item. Chapter 1697. Miniature World. Chapter 1697. Miniature World. When Xueqi tried inspecting the dark gray crystal, the result he got was simply a bunch of unknown. In fact, he didn't even get the name of the crystal. It can't be inspected? Xueqi grew even more curious upon receiving this result. He immediately activated Omniscient Eyes and appraised the crystal. Aside from weapons and equipment, cases where an item could not be inspected were rare. In such rare cases, the reason for such an outcome was either a frightening origin or damage beyond repair. After Xueqi activated Omniscient Eyes and used them on the dark gray crystal, a loading bar appeared before him. 22 seconds. What an amazing item! Xueqi's eyes glowed with excitement when he saw the time needed to appraise the crystal. Normally, even epic items needed only a dozen seconds or so to appraise. For the crystal before him to need 22 seconds, this proved that the crystal was much more valuable than even epic items. However, after giving the matter some thought, Xueqi found it reasonable. An item capable of serving as the core of the magic array that sealed the entire Stoneclaw Mountains naturally couldn't be an ordinary item. Even the defensive magic arrays used to protect cities required an extremely strong power source to operate. A barrier that could seal a map as large as the Stoneclaw Mountains would need an extremely frightening amount of energy. Finally, after 22 seconds had passed, the attribute panel of the dark gray crystal was no longer filled with unknown. Evil God's Eye. This is an item created by the evil god for the specific purpose of opening up a path through a world's barrier. The inside of the evil god's eye contains a sealed miniature world. The evil god's eye can be used as a conduit to transfer the power of the entire miniature world to the outside world. However, as the conversion equipment has been damaged, the evil god's eye is no longer able to supply any power to the outside world. There's a miniature world inside this thing? Heaven's Burial really is generous to actually use such a treasure to seal the Stoneclaw Mountains. Xueqi was dumbstruck after reading the evil god's eye's introduction. It was no wonder he couldn't inspect the item before. It was only natural for him not to be able to inspect the information of a miniature world using normal means. As far as Xueqi knew, miniature worlds were extremely rare in God's domain. Only the ancient gods could create items with miniature worlds sealed inside them. Meanwhile, items containing miniature worlds all possessed extraordinary power. Moreover, if players controlled an item containing a miniature world, they could enter said miniature world anytime they wanted to. Although miniature worlds were no match for other worlds in terms of size, they were roughly similar existences. However, owners of miniature worlds had complete control over them, unlike other worlds, and could harvest the resources inside the miniature worlds at their leisure. Other worlds, on the other hand, required players to manually obtain the resources they wanted. Of course, miniature worlds did not possess as many resources as other worlds did. Controlling a miniature world was akin to gaining control of an ore vein. Players could harvest various kinds of rare resources periodically from the miniature world they controlled. Meanwhile, the most precious resource one could obtain from a miniature world would be power ore. Power ore was an excellent support material produced by concentrating the energy of the entire miniature world. Typically, a support material that could increase the forging success rate of dark gold equipment by 5% would already be considered a miraculous item. However, power ore boosted the forging success rate of dark gold equipment by around 5% to 10%. In addition, the forged equipment would gain the energy protection passive effect with 100% certainty. As for weapons produced using power ore, they would gain the energy strengthening passive effect with 100% certainty. The energy protection effect passively increased the tolerance of equipment, making the equipment less likely to get damaged by powerful attacks and reducing the loss of durability. Meanwhile, the energy strengthening effect performed roughly the same function as energy protection. It decreased a weapon's chances of suffering wear and tear when striking at tough opponents or blocking powerful attacks. Players might not find these effects particularly useful during the early stages of God's domain. But at higher levels, these effects would start to become important because the more players fought against powerful monsters, the more frequently they would come across monsters capable of severely damaging weapons and equipment. It might be fine if the weapons and equipment players used were of high quality, but those at fine gold rank and below could end up a pile of scrap after going through a battle against a powerful monster. Due to this reason, as players reached higher levels, their thirst for high-ranking weapons and equipment would likewise become increasingly greater. It was also due to this reason that, in Xueqi's previous life, the market had never become saturated with weapons and equipment in the 10 years of God's domain's operation, because even epic items could be destroyed. Hence, the various large guilds had actively nurtured their own lifestyle players in the past. This was especially true for lifestyle players capable of producing weapons and equipment. The further guilds progressed into the game, the greater their need for weapons and equipment. During the later stages of the game, guilds even had to prepare multiple sets of weapons and equipment for their members when raiding powerful bosses or fighting large-scale battles with other guilds. Since weapons and equipment made with power ore lost durability at a much slower rate, guilds could save up on plenty of coins and materials. In the past, any power ore sold on the market would be bought almost immediately, so long as the price was reasonable. The various large guilds had also expended a ton of effort on the acquisition of power ore. Unfortunately, power ore was extremely rare. In fact, the continent of God's domain didn't produce power ore. Players could obtain power ore only from miniature worlds and certain unstable other worlds. Hence, the various large guilds had constantly contested over other worlds that produced power ore. As for owning a miniature world that could provide a stable supply of power ore, this was something that most guilds could only dream of. As far as Xueqi knew, only a few super guilds and super first-rate guilds had managed to get their hands on a miniature world. Due to their ownership of a miniature world, these guilds had performed much better at raiding team dungeons and field bosses than other guilds. Thus, now that Xueqi had discovered a miniature world sealed inside the evil god's eye, how could he possibly not become excited? In fact, he even wanted to thank Heaven's Burial right now. If not for Heaven's Burial sealing off the Stoneclaw Mountains, he would never have gotten his hands on such a valuable item. Had Heaven's Burial offered to trade the evil god's eye for Stone Forest Town, Xueqi might even have accepted the offer. All that trouble just to capture Stone Forest Town would have been unnecessary. However, had Heaven's Burial truly known the value of the evil god's eye, the guild definitely wouldn't have done something as foolish as using it as a power source for a magic array. I wonder if the war god's temple can repair this thing? Xueqi muttered to himself as he looked at the crystal in his hands. Although the evil god's eye was damaged, It was not irreparable. It should be possible for the War God's Temple, which was familiar with the Evil God's Temple, to repair the Evil God's Eye. After thinking up to this point, Xueqi stored the Evil God's Eye and started looking through the other items he obtained from the war. The loot dropped by the mythic evil demons and mythic evil beasts was considerably good. 2 pieces of epic growth type equipment dropped this time. A top for magical classes and a pair of boots for MTs. The rest were level 70 plus dark gold and fine gold equipment. To current players, these things were still too high-leveled and useless for now. Aside from weapons and equipment, the mythic monsters also dropped an evil god crystal, which was an unexpected harvest for Xueqi. In addition, he had obtained over 10,000 evil energy crystals from all the lower-ranked evil demons his summoned creatures and Zero Wings members had killed. If he sold all these evil energy crystals, he could definitely make a huge fortune. However, Xueqi had no intention of selling these evil energy crystals. Instead, he planned to use them to upgrade the Evil God's Tablet. It was only the existence of the Evil God's Tablet that allowed Zero Wings Battle Arena in Stone Forest Town to have advanced combat rooms. Meanwhile, these advanced combat rooms were the reason behind the popularity of Stone Forest Town's Battle Arena among expert players. Unfortunately, the Evil God's Tablet had a limited AoE, supporting the operation of only a few advanced combat rooms at a time, which limited the attraction the Battle Arena held for expert players. If Xueqi could increase the number of advanced combat rooms, then Stone Forest Town's Battle Arena would become more attractive to expert players. Consequently, Zero Wing could recruit more expert players. Now that he had 10,000 evil energy crystals, he could definitely afford to upgrade the Evil God's Tablet. Following which, Xueqi stored some of the weapons, equipment, and materials he acquired in the guild warehouse, and used a guild transfer scroll to teleport to Stone Forest Town. Chapter 1698. Upgrading the Evil God's Tablet. Chapter 1698. Upgrading the Evil God's Tablet. Starmoon City, Stone Forest Town. After Zero Wing's big battle with Heaven's Burial came to an end, shock filled the whole Starmoon Kingdom. Nobody had expected such an outcome. In this battle, not only was Heaven's Burial defeated, but the guild's entire main force was practically crippled. Many of Heaven's Burial's members couldn't even log into God's domain right now. As for Blackwater, it, too, had suffered miserable losses. With the addition of this new battle record, Zero Wing's fame and prestige in Starmoon Kingdom reached unprecedented heights. Every major power operating in Starmoon Kingdom, whether in the light or in the dark, now held Zero Wing in intense awe and fear. Setting aside the 3 Baphomets Zero Wing summoned, just the combination of several hundred miniature ballistas and the movement-type defensive magic array made Zero Wing a frightening force to reckon with. In terms of war weapons, no guild in Starmoon Kingdom could compete against Zero Wing. Now that Heaven's Burial had suffered such a miserable defeat, most likely no guild in Starmoon Kingdom could pose a threat to Zero Wing. Inside the guild hall of Zero Wing's residence, a bright flash appeared at Residence's teleportation point. After the light vanished, Xueqi's figure took its place. At this moment, the guild hall was very lively. Many of the guild's new generation reserve elite members could be seen lining up excitedly in the quest area, waiting to pick up a guild quest. These new generation reserve elites were players that left their respective beginner towns not long ago and passed the guild's entrance test. Although they were only level 20 on average, they all possessed considerably good talent. Among them were some gifted youths. Taking a glance, Xueqi even noticed a few players who had been famous Apex experts in Starmoon Kingdom during his previous life. For example, Shadow Chaser was one of the top 10 assassins of Starmoon Kingdom. There was also Blood Rain, who was one of the top 20 oracles in the kingdom. And then there was Luo Yi, a druid who had managed to get promoted to Tier 4. These were all talents that the various large guilds desperately sought to recruit in the past. Yet, now, these talents had all chosen to join Zero Wing. The war this time is really amazing. It's a pity that I'm too low-leveled to join. Hopefully, I'll get to join in a battle of such scale in the future. A male youth clad in grey mage robes said as he watched the video of the previous war being played in the guild hall, a hopeful expression on his face. It won't be that easy to get selected for such a large-scale war. At the very least, you'll have to get promoted into an elite member to have a chance. The bunch of us are only reserve elites right now. It'll take a lot of effort to become an actual elite member of the guild. Just accumulating the required GCPs is already plenty difficult, not to mention passing the promotion test, a robust man geared in metal armor said, shaking his head. Reserve Elite was a position granted to players that the guild deemed to have potential. However, a person's potential did not necessarily represent their strength. If Reserve Elites failed to hit the growth requirements set by the guild within a certain period of time, they would be demoted to normal members and would have to climb their way back up in the guild. Moreover, as Zero Wing's influence in God's domain increased and more players chose to join the guild, the bar for elite members would also be raised. After all, the guild had a limited amount of resources. Not everybody could enjoy bountiful resources. Only the guild's elite and expert members had the qualifications to reap such benefits. That's no problem at all. Right now, the only advantage the guild's elite members have over us is that they joined the guild earlier than we did. With enough time, even becoming a member of the guild's main force won't be a problem. A teenage girl with an oval face and a graceful body clad in black leather armor said with a grin on her face. She turned to look at Shifeng's figure displayed in the battle video and added, "Just you all wait. Sooner or later, you'll be able to see my figure standing beside the guild leader." You're dreaming too much. Why don't you take a look and see who's standing beside the guild leader? Commander Firedance and Vice Guild Leader Aqua Rose are both experts who can go toe-to-toe with even the peak experts of super guilds. Someone in the crowd around the teenage girl retorted. Only, as soon as this person said so, he was immediately given a fierce glare by the teenage girl. These reserve elites did not rein in their volume when they spoke. Even ordinary players standing several dozen yards away could hear their conversation clearly. Let alone Xueqi, a player who possessed an extraordinary physique. However, Xueqi simply chuckled in regard to the conversation of these reserve elites. He had never thought that his existence would spur guild members to improve themselves. Nonetheless, after taking a look at these reserve elite members, Xueqi felt that there was a need to expand the guild once again. Previously, due to Zero Wing's shallow foundations and funding problem, the guild could afford to make only a limited number of reserve elites. After the war with Heaven's Burial though, that was no longer a problem. Setting aside the items Zero Wing obtained from the evil demons killed, just the weapons and equipment the guild got from killing Heaven's Burial's and Blackwater's members were already enough for several mass recruitments. Meanwhile, during the next expansion, Xueqi planned to lure in experts from neighboring kingdoms as well. After all, the scale of the war between Zero Wing and Heaven's Burial had been massive. Not to mention, Heaven's Burial was the previous ruler of ancient Rock City. Hence, the players of Star Moon Kingdom weren't the only ones that had paid attention to the war. Even players in neighboring kingdoms knew about it. Now that Zero Wing had thoroughly crushed Heaven's Burial, the players in the neighboring kingdoms would naturally try to get a better understanding of Zero Wing. Meanwhile, he could use this opportunity to recruit a bunch of elite and expert players to increase the guild's strength and growth potential. Thinking up to this point, Xueqi messaged Aqua Rose and had her send some people to carry out his orders. As for himself, he made his way to Stone Forest Town's battle arena. After the war with Heaven's Burial ended, peace and stability had returned to Stone Forest Town. As a result, the number of players gathered at Stone Forest Town was continuously increasing. Among the players visiting the town, there was no lack of guild experts and independent experts. After watching the battle between Zero Wing and Heaven's Burial, everyone had realized one thing. And that was the fact that even players could go up against war weapons, but sufficient strength was needed to do so. Meanwhile, if they wanted to improve their strength, getting promoted to Tier 2 was undisputedly the fastest method to do so. However, aside from needing good weapons and equipment, sufficiently high combat standards were also necessary to clear the Tier 2 promotion quest. Training at Stone Forest Town's battle arena was undoubtedly the fastest way to improve one's combat standards. Although training at the Trial Tower was also an option, not everybody could afford the fee of 1 magic crystal per attempt. By the time Xueqi entered the battle arena, its lobby was already overflowing with players. Many experts belonging to the various large guilds could be seen arranging matchups with each other. There were also players hosting private duels or competitions with attractive rewards. However, out of all the available attractions inside the battle arena, the advanced combat rooms were no doubt the most popular. The reason for this was the advanced combat room's facilitation of improvement in players' skill completion rates. The higher one's skill completion rate, the stronger their skills would become. This could be said to be the most intuitive way for expert players to raise their strength. However, as there were simply too few advanced combat rooms available, despite Judy, the NPC Xueqi had tasked with the battle arena's management, having already raised the rental fee to 4 magic crystals per 30 minutes, demand for the advanced combat rooms still exceeded the supply. When Xueqi took a look at the battle arena's earnings report, he discovered that most of the magic crystals the battle arena earned came from the advanced combat rooms. The popularity of the advanced combat rooms far exceeded Xueqi's expectations. He waited for the current batch of players using the advanced combat rooms to come out, then closed the advanced combat rooms temporarily and retrieved the evil god's tablet. Immediately after he did so, a commotion occurred inside the battle arena. What's going on? Why can't the advanced combat rooms be used? I've waited a long time for my turn. Yet, now that my turn has finally arrived, they're actually not letting us use the advanced combat rooms? Is this a scam? The players waiting to use the advanced combat rooms kicked up a fuss right away. However, everyone received a quick reply from the NPC staff stating that the advanced combat rooms were undergoing some upgrades and that they needed to wait a short while for the upgrades to be completed. System: detecting more than 10,000 evil energy crystals on your person. Do you wish to spend 10,000 evil energy crystals to further upgrade the evil god's tablet? Holding the evil god's tablet, Xueqi was startled to receive the system notification. Previously, he had to manually select to upgrade the tablet. This time, however, the system actually took the initiative to ask him. However, he did not dwell on the matter but immediately clicked Agree. Chapter 1699. God's Item. Inside the quiet storage room, the evil god's tablet began to transform after Xueqi had agreed to feed it 10,000 evil energy crystals. It had only been the size of a wash basin, but it gradually grew into a 3-meter-tall table. The blurry images and divine runes engraved on the tablet also became clearer. As the divine runes and image sharpened, the divine might the tablet radiated increased until Xueqi couldn't even move. It felt as if time had stopped, only sparing his mind. After 10 seconds or so, the divine might the tablet gave off disappeared. The tablet itself had also undergone a massive transformation. The originally dark gray tablet was now silver in color. The ambient mana also gathered around the tablet, increasing the mana density around it until it formed a white mist. This mist gradually spread and enveloped the storage room as a whole. What's going on with the mana? Xueqi was indescribably shocked as he looked at the white mist around him. Normally, mana that was so dense that formed a white mist felt incomparably pleasant to players. Players who bathed in this mana would also feel their minds reach an incredible tranquility. However, Xueqi felt no such effects from the white mist in the storage room. On the contrary, he felt exhausted. In fact, his body even felt heavier as if something was weighing on him. Although Xueqi's mental state was on the verge of crumbling, he mustered his spirit and inspected the evil god's tablet's recent changes. Third fragment of evil god's tablet, fragmented legendary rank item. Active skill 1-. Illusory space. When activated, forms an illusory space of 200-yard radius. The illusory space will create a copy of any player that enters. Players can then fight their own copies. The illusory creature has all skills of the copied player and can achieve a 100% skill completion rate. Players can choose to challenge illusory creatures up to the dark gold rank. Duration: 50 minutes. Cooldown: 1 hour. Can be evolved. Requires 1 evil god crystal to evolve. Active skill 2-. Evil god domain. When activated, create a self-contained field around the tablet that is completely separated from the outside world. Time flows twice as fast inside the field than in the outside world. Mana density inside the field is triple that of the outside world. When Evil God Domain is active, illusory creatures will appear inside the space at fixed intervals. Every wave of illusory creatures killed will increase the mana density of the self-contained field slightly. If players are killed by the illusory creatures, their souls will be damaged, and they will be prevented from logging into God's domain for 6 hours. Can be evolved. Requires 3 evil god crystals to evolve. An item created by the evil god. Evil energy crystals can be used to repair the divine runes inside the tablet. Requires 200,000 evil energy crystals to upgrade. This tablet is amazing. Not even legendary items have this kind of ability. Xueqi was astonished as he read the evil god's tablet's new attributes. The tablet had improved far more than Xueqi had expected. The evil god's domain alone was a godlike ability, not to mention how many more advanced combat rooms he could set up with the illusory space's increased radius. Regardless of how far players progressed in God's domain, environments with high mana density would be quite popular. This was because such environments were a great help when players practiced their combat techniques. Not only did the evil god domain create a mana-rich environment, but it could also accelerate the flow of time. 1 hour inside the evil god domain was only the equivalent of 30 minutes in the outside world. For players seeking to improve their combat standards without wasting too much of their precious time, the evil god domain was the perfect solution. While others spent 10 hours training in the outside world, players could achieve the same results in 5 hours within the evil god domain. If the various superpowers learned about the evil god's tablet, they'd definitely gang up and move against Zero Wing. Plenty of superpowers were already envious of the advanced combat rooms. They only refrained from taking action because the cost wasn't worth the potential gains. However, the evil god domain would certainly be the straw that broke the camel's back. The only downside was the illusory creatures that would appear inside the evil god domain. Based on the skill's introductory text, it was obvious that the illusory creatures would grow stronger. As a result, players could only train for a limited amount of time in the evil god domain. When players could no longer fend off the summoned illusory creatures, they'd be forced to leave. If they stayed, and the illusory creatures killed them, they'd suffer a huge loss. It seems I won't be able to let the guild's experts use this casually for a short time, Xueqi thought to himself as he reread the evil god domain's introductory text. Zero Wing already stuck out like a sore thumb in God's domain. If he allowed a large number of Zero Wing's experts train in the evil god domain, the news of it would quickly reach the various superpowers. Zero Wing had already grown to pose a threat to them, and it was normal that these superpowers would send undercover experts to spy on his guild. If the various superpowers learned about the evil god domain, Zero Wing would become embroiled in another struggle. The best course of action was only to allow Fire Dance, Blackwater, and the guild's other core upper echelons to train in the evil god domain. Any more than that would be too risky. If he wanted all of his guild's experts to use the evil god domain, Zero Wing would have to become strong enough for the superpowers to acknowledge its rights to own the tablet. Unfortunately, gaining that recognition would involve a long, arduous process. However, Xueqi wasn't too disappointed. Although he couldn't let too many experts train in the evil god domain, he'd have no issues constructing more advanced combat rooms. Illusory space already had a 200-yard range. If the evil god's tablet were upgraded further, the skill's range would grow. At that time, the skill's range might even cover the entire floor. Although such an outcome would also make the various superpowers all the more jealous of Zero Wing, they wouldn't become so envious that they'd resort to cooperation to attack the guild. After all, the various superpowers all possessed extraordinary foundations. They had their own methods of helping their guild experts improve their skill completion rates. Only, those methods might not be as effective as the advanced combat rooms. The next upgrade costs 200,000 evil energy crystals? Xueqi frowned as he looked at the upgrade condition for the evil god's tablet. The cost is certainly getting harsher. Zero Wing had killed nearly 100,000 evil demons to collect 10,000 evil energy crystals. Moreover, the guild had only obtained such a harvest due to the fact that evil demons had a higher drop rate for evil energy crystals than evil beasts. However, players didn't often encounter evil demon armies. Collecting 200,000 evil energy crystals would require an insane amount of time, effort, and resources. Wait, it isn't exactly impossible. Xueqi suddenly remembered Ancient Rock City. At this point, Ancient Rock City had become an evil god's branch temple. Over 3 million evil beasts and evil demons fortified the city. If he could kill every one of those monsters, he should be able to collect nearly, if not more than, 200,000 evil energy crystals. If the various major powers and Beast Emperor knew that Xueqi played with the idea of attacking Ancient Rock City, they would most likely think he had lost his mind. While everyone else did their best to avoid the city, Xueqi actually planned to pick a fight with it. As Xueqi was thinking of ways to deal with the evil god's branch temple, a line of small, bracketed words in the evil god's tablet's attribute panel caught Xueqi's attention. These two skills can be individually upgraded? When Xueqi saw that he could upgrade the skills with evil god crystals individually, he was instantly ecstatic. Although evil god crystals were incomparably valuable, he only had one city that needed a power source. Immediately, Xueqi chose to upgrade illusory space. Suddenly, the evil god crystal in Xueqi's bag transformed into a streak of light that flowed into the silver tablet. In the next moment, the first of the 6 blurry images on the evil god's tablet became clear. The image depicted an ancient god fighting a 9-headed magic snake. The closer Xueqi examined the scene, the more immersed in the battle he felt. This is a tutorial for the realms of truth? As Xueqi continued to inspect the image, his heart began to pound. Chapter 1700. Guild's Foundation. Xueqi had already reached the realms of truth's ascension realm. Hence, after examining the first image on the evil god's tablet, he was certain that it was a tutorial for the realms of truth. Moreover, the tutorial was extremely detailed that even Xueqi gained a lot of inspiration from it. What kind of treasure is this evil god's tablet? Curiosity filled Xueqi as he gazed at the evil god's temple. There was very little information on the realms of truth available in God's domain. If not for a fortuitous encounter some time ago, he wouldn't have learned about these realms, either. This was just like during his previous life, when he had only known that reaching the realms of refinement could sharpen one's 5 senses and help improve one's skill completion rates and combat technique learning efficiency. However, after grasping the principles behind the realms of truth, he had realized how important these realms truly were. In fact, now that Xueqi had grasped both the realms of refinement and realms of truth, he was confident of defeating 3 or 4 void realm experts of the same level simultaneously, even if he didn't have an overwhelming advantage in basic attributes and didn't use any skills or spells. If he said as much to anyone, they'd likely laugh at him for being so overly confident. Most experts would have to flee from a force of 3 or 4 experts of the same realm of refinement, even if their attainment in that realm were higher. Only domain realm experts could take on multiple opponents of the same combat standard. Super guilds were so powerful precisely because they possessed a complete legacy to nurture experts in the realms of refinement. Meanwhile, super first-rate guilds would always remain as super first-rate guilds due to their lack of a complete legacy. This kind of legacy was a guild's foundation. The evil god's tablet was one such legacy. Only instead of being a legacy that passed down knowledge regarding the realms of refinement, it was a legacy that taught the realms of truth. As far as Xueqi knew, no power throughout God's domain had a legacy related to the realms of truth. Hence, one could just imagine how valuable the evil god's tablet was. Although the first image on the evil god's tablet only taught the realms of truth's basics, which addressed one's own power usage, it was still extremely valuable knowledge. Furthermore, the table had other engraved images. As long as he put in the effort, it was only a matter of time before he restored the other images as well. Once he did so, he might obtain a complete legacy for the realms of truth. Just thinking about the possibility excited Xueqi. If everything turned out how he imagined it, Zero Wing would have the foundation to grow into a super guild. Although this foundation would be different from other super guilds, he did not think that this foundation would be any weaker than theirs. He had yet to find the realms of truth's limits, and no one could tell what kind of heights a player could reach by relying on these realms. Moreover, he had an advantage that the various super guilds did not. He knew how to train in both the realms of truth and the realms of refinement, while the super guilds had only explored the realms of refinement. This could be a considerably massive advantage. After Xueqi finished examining the image on the tablet, he inspected its attribute panel again. Sure enough, this evil god's tablet is a treasure to nurture experts. Xueqi's eyes glowed when he read the updated introductory text for Illusory Space. Illusory Space. When activated. Skill Effect 1. Players wielding an evil energy crystal and standing within 10 yards of the evil god's tablet shall enter the tablet's image with their consciousness, experiencing battle directly. Each evil energy crystal grants 1 complete experience. Skill Effect 2. Forms an illusory space of 200-yard radius. The illusory space will create a copy of any player that enters. Players can then fight their own copies. The illusory creature has all skills of the copied player and can achieve a 100% skill completion rate. Players can choose to challenge illusory creatures up to the dark gold ranks. Duration: 50 minutes. Cooldown: 1 hour. Can be evolved. Requires 1 evil god crystal to evolve. With this direct experience tutorial, players could get a firm grasp of the principles behind the realms of truth by experiencing the fight between the ancient god and nine-headed magic snake personally, even if they were utterly ignorant of the realms of truth. This training method was many times more efficient than observing the tablet's image. Only, Xueqi hadn't expected the evil energy crystal requirement. However, after giving the matter some thought, he found it reasonable. This was a chance to experience the realms of truth directly. This was far better than watching a video. It wasn't unusual for there to be a cost. It seems that I'll need to prepare more evil energy crystals and evil god crystals. Xueqi could not help but reveal a bitter smile as he gazed at the evil god's tablet. Previously, he had still been somewhat skeptical about the saying that fortune and misfortune existed alongside each other in God's domain. Now, however, he believed in the saying completely. Originally, the evil god's temple's arrival should have been a disaster for both Zero Wing and Star Moon Kingdom. Looking at it now, however, Xueqi found that it was an opportunity. Otherwise, he really wouldn't know where to locate so many evil energy crystals and evil god crystals. After all, only evil demons and evil beasts dropped these items. Immediately, Xueqi took out an evil energy crystal and activated illusory space to test out the tutorial. Suddenly, the evil god's tablet released a dazzling purple glow. Xueqi then felt as if his entire being were sucked into the tablet. Following which, the scene before him underwent a heaven-defying transformation. By the time Xueqi realized it, he was standing in the middle of a primordial wasteland. Dark, rumbling clouds covered the sky above him. Meanwhile, before him was a 500-meter-tall nine-headed magic snake, which towered like a mountain that released a boundless aura. The power within its breath could likely kill a Tier 5 existence instantly. Each of the nine-headed magic snake's heads contained a different kind of power. When all 9 powers combined, the resulting power could be akin to a natural disaster. In the past, Xueqi had watched the battles of Tier 6 god-ranked experts, and he doubted that those Tier 6 players would even survive 2 or 3 hits from the nine-headed magic snake. Fortunately, the magic snake's horrific aura didn't affect Xueqi in the slightest right now. He could feel that his consciousness had entered the ancient god that had fought the nine-headed magic snake in the tablet's image. However, although that was the case, he could not move the body. He could only quietly observe and feel the ancient god's actions. Following which, the ancient god started his battle against the nine-headed magic snake. However, contrary to expectations, the struggle wasn't intense. Rather, it was a one-sided beating. The ancient god effortlessly evaded or blocked every attack the behemoth sent. Every move the ancient god executed looked like a profound and complex combat technique. Xueqi was utterly mesmerized by the way the ancient god fought. After 10 minutes or so, the tutorial came to an end. Before Xueqi even realized what was happening, his consciousness left the evil god's tablet and returned to his body. Amazing. So, these are the true realms of truth? Xueqi was at a loss for words. Rhinebeck had acknowledged that he had grasped the basics of the realms of truth, but compared to the foundations the ancient god taught, the basics he had learned were mediocre at best. If he had to score the basics he had discovered and learned himself, they would only earn a passing mark of 60 out of 100. Meanwhile, the ancient god's basics would score a perfect 100. There were simply too many aspects he needed to improve. Although Xueqi wished to experience the tutorial again, he could only experience the tutorial once each time he activated illusory space. He had to wait until the cooldown was over. However, the 1-hour cooldown was too long for Xueqi. He still had many things he needed to take care of. He had no choice but to give up for now. Moreover, he had gained plenty of inspiration from his first visit. It would take him quite some time to digest all of the newfound information. Following which, Xueqi called Judy over to start rearranging the layout of the battle arena's 7th floor. Previously, the evil god's tablet had only had a 100-yard radius. Now, it had increased to a 200-yard radius. The total available area had essentially quadrupled. There was definitely a need to rearrange the floor's layout. After spending around 20 minutes or so deciding on the layout, they ended up squeezing in 40 advanced combat rooms into the evil god's tablet's range. That was more than 4 times of what had been previously available. With this, the battle arena could earn at least 4 times more income from the advanced combat rooms. But Xueqi still wasn't satisfied. He then instructed Judy to increase the advanced combat room's rent, pushing the original cost from 4 magic crystals to 10 magic crystals. Guild leader, I'm afraid that this price far exceeds what most experts can afford. If we go through with this price increase, many experts will give up on renting the advanced combat rooms, Aqua Rose anxiously said when she saw the new price Xueqi offered. Expert players were the advanced combat room's main customers. She had constantly been managing Stone Forest Town's candlelight trading firm and battle arena, so she had a clear grasp of the various experts' daily incomes. The previous price, for magic crystals, was already the limit for many experts. If the advanced combat room's rent increased to 10 magic crystals, even the experts from well-known adventurer teams would have a hard time affording it. If that were the case, these expert players would rather train in the Divine Colosseum instead. Don't worry. Limits are meant to be broken. Moreover, the new advanced combat rooms have a duration of 50 minutes instead of the previous 30 minutes, Xueqi said, chuckling. He did not bother to offer any further explanation. The upgraded Evil Gods tablet was nothing like it had been. He had experienced this personally. Meanwhile, after the NPC manager, Judy, published the advanced combat room's new rent, the players in the lobby were stunned. 10 magic crystals? Is Zero Wing trying to rob us? Chapter 1701. Hidden Dragon Rises. Chapter 1701. Hidden Dragon Rises. Zero Wing sure has guts to demand such a price. Do they really think the advanced combat rooms are the only things that can help players improve their skill completion rates? I can purchase a good piece of equipment or train in the Divine Colosseum 10 times with 10 magic crystals. Does Zero Wing think magic crystals are cabbages? When players saw the updated pricing for the advanced combat room on the large screens in the center of the lobby, many expert players thought that Zero Wing had gone mad for magic crystals. Although current players had far more magic crystal sources now, they could still only earn a limited number. Moreover, there were many other things that required magic crystals. 10 magic crystals simply wasn't a tolerable price for expert players. Players weren't even guaranteed to earn so many after an entire day of hard work. How could they possibly spend all of their earnings on gradually training their skill completion rates? The only benefit was that there were 31 more advanced combat rooms available than before. With this, players would not have to wait in line as long. However, the various major powers experts still frowned on the new change. The advanced combat room's main customers were these experts. Although they could afford the current price, it would be a huge burden on their guilds. Their respective guilds also couldn't afford to send them to the advanced combat rooms as often. It was both unwise and not worthwhile. While fighting the illusory creatures in the advanced combat rooms would indeed help them improve their skill completion rates more efficiently, the higher their skill completion rate became, the less effective the advanced combat rooms were. For expert players like them, the improvement from a single training session wasn't worth 10 magic crystals. Unfortunately, there weren't any good alternatives once players reached their standards. One could say that this change put them in a very awkward position. Hold on a minute. They're updating the advanced combat room's introduction. As everyone discussed the new pricing, the battle arena's main screen revealed the new rules for the advanced combat rooms. First, the duration of each session had increased to 50 minutes. Second, Zero Wing's normal members would get a 10% discount to rent the advanced combat rooms, elite members would get a 20% discount, and core members would get a 30% discount. Moreover, 10 advanced combat rooms would be reserved for guild members. When these new rules were revealed, the crowd in the lobby went into an uproar once again. Meanwhile, the various major powers members turned to Zero Wing's members in envy over the benefits they got to enjoy. With the discounts and extended duration, the rental fee Zero Wing's members had to pay was just slightly higher than before. Moreover, there were now exclusive advanced combat rooms for Zero Wing's members. Suddenly, independent experts started to leave the battle arena, one after another, and make their way towards Zero Wing's residence to apply to join the guild. Even many of the various major powers' elite and expert members hesitated. When the other large guilds' upper echelons received news of the update, they paled. Zero Wing actually had such a card to play. With this, Zero Wing's rise really will become unstoppable. Now that Zero Wing had solidified its position as Star Moon Kingdom's #1 guild, there was no longer any local guilds that dared to challenge it. This meant that Zero Wing had a monopoly over the best resources in Star Moon Kingdom. Naturally, its guild members would receive more resources than before. With the introduction of this new guild benefit, Zero Wing became significantly more attractive towards their respective guilds' elite and expert members. It was only a matter of time before their guilds started to lose large groups of their members, yet there was nothing their guilds could do to stop it. For a time after news of the updated advanced combat rooms spread, the number of elite and expert players trying to join Zero Wing increased exponentially. Because of this, Aqua Rose, who was trying to organize Zero Wing's harvest from its war with Heaven's Burial and Blackwater, was ecstatic. In less than half an hour since the new advanced combat rooms had been introduced, Zero Wing had received 20,000 plus applications from ordinary players, 5,000 plus applications from elite players, and 200 plus applications from expert players. Just testing all of these players would take a very long time. The guild's development speed had far exceeded Aqua Rose's initial expectations. Aqua Rose had estimated that it would take Zero Wing roughly 2 or 3 days to recruit so many elite and expert players, but it would seem that Zero Wing might increase its elite member count past 250,000 sooner than that. The guild also shouldn't have any problems increasing its expert member count to 5,000. With such high numbers, Zero Wing would surpass many actual first-rate guilds. The only real difference separating Zero Wing from actual first-rate guilds now was the guild's smaller sphere of influence and fewer normal members. However, this couldn't be helped since Zero Wing's recruitment standards were too high. Moreover, first-rate guilds had begun spreading their influence throughout God's domain the day the game launched. Their influence now covered multiple kingdoms and empires. These first-rate guilds had spent countless resources and an absurd amount of wealth to build a sturdy foundation for themselves. Zero Wing, on the other hand, had begun its development in a single city with little to no wealth or resources. Meanwhile, the effectiveness of the advanced combat rooms promotion effect had also caught Xueqi by surprise. Guild elites and experts were necessary for a guild's development because guilds needed manpower to manage and protect the new territory it acquired. Simply chasing away the local rulers wasn't enough. If a guild lacked the strength to protect its new territory, some other power would eventually capture the territory. In that case, the guild might as well have not bothered to expand in the first place. Currently, Zero Wing was still able to get by with the number of elite and expert members it had since it had very few territories. In total, the guild only controlled 3 towns and 1 city. In comparison, first-rate guilds controlled over a dozen towns that were spread across multiple kingdoms and empires. However, if Zero Wing started to expand, it would naturally encounter more rival powers. If multiple locations were attacked at the same time, Xueqi wouldn't be able to protect all of his territories even if he were more powerful. Hence, a sufficient number of guild elite and expert members was extremely important. As Xueqi ruminated over Zero Wing's future, Gentle Snow suddenly contacted him and asked, "Guild leader, where are you now?" "I'm in Stone Forest Town. Has something happened?" Xueqi asked curiously. When Stone Forest Town had been attacked, Aqua Rose had led plenty of the guild's experts to reinforce the town. Meanwhile, Gentle Snow had been responsible for assisting the kingdom's armies against the evil beast army that was invading Star Moon Kingdom. Since the evil god's temple's NPCs controlled these evil beasts, not players, they were much higher leveled. The lowest leveled evil beast was level 60, while the majority of the evil beasts were chieftain rank and above. In addition, quite a few tier 3 NPCs from the evil god's temple commanded the evil beast army. If Gentle Snow hadn't led Zero Wing's forces to help the kingdom's armies, the evil beast army would have long since broken past the defensive line. If that happened, the evil beasts would devour every resource in their path, growing stronger as they made their way towards Zero Wing City. The number of evil beasts over here has started to decrease. According to our scouts' reports, Beast Emperor seems to be pulling out the evil beasts and demons under his control. Beast Emperor has sent his monsters to surround the primordial divine ruin. The 2,000 elite members and 100 expert members we stationed at the ruin have been annihilated. Moreover, Beast Emperor has announced that Zero Wing is prohibited from entering the primordial divine ruin from now on. "It seems that we're his only target," Gentle Snow said, gritting her teeth. The primordial divine ruin had already become a prime location for the various large guilds to acquire weapons, equipment, and combat techniques. Most importantly, it was the only entrance to Primordial City. Primordial City was the only place to obtain primordial souls, which could help players complete their Tier 2 promotion quests. If Zero Wing's supply of primordial souls were cut off, its development would definitely fall behind other guilds. By only preventing Zero Wing's members from entering the primordial divine ruin, Beast Emperor was clearly trying to provoke the guild. Naturally, the other guilds were more than happy to watch from a distance. Now that Zero Wing had already entered Primordial City and gained an advantage over their guilds, the other guilds wanted to see Zero Wing's members enter the primordial divine ruin even less. Although Gentle Snow wanted to do something about this, the Orc Empire was a neutral map. Even if she notified the kingdom's armies about the evil beasts and evil demons at the primordial divine ruin, the kingdom's armies would not take action. Beast Emperor must really think that no one can touch him just because he's in a neutral map. Xueqi could not help but sneer when he heard Gentle Snow's report, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Since he dares try to cut off my path to fortune, I'll cut off his legs. Chapter 1702. Taking Control of the Lost Town. Chapter 1702. Taking Control of the Lost Town. Although Xueqi had spoken very softly, Gentle Snow could clearly hear the determination and anger in his tone. Guild leader, we aren't really going to take action, right? Gentle Snow grew anxious at Xueqi's words. That Beast Emperor is obviously doing this to lure us over to the Orc Empire. If we really march our army into the neutral map, we will be beyond the kingdom's protection. Those powerful evil beasts and evil demons will tear us apart easily. If we get dealt a heavy blow now, it will diminish the reputation and prestige we've garnered from the previous war. Although Zero Wing had not suffered any casualties during its battle with Heaven's Burial's armies, it had expended a lot of its resources. In fact, Zero Wing's expenditure in the battle had been astronomical. Other guilds might not have a clear idea of how much the battle had cost Zero Wing, but how could she, a vice-guild leader of Zero Wing, not know? Of the 140,000 magic crystals the guild had prepared for the battle, over 120,000 were spent. With the few magic crystals Zero Wing had remaining, going up Beast Emperor's evil beasts and evil demons would be impossible. Meanwhile, once Zero Wing exhausted its magic crystal reserves and lost the protection of the movement-type defensive magic array, the outcome would be horrendous for Zero Wing's forces. Unlike the evil demons that attacked Stone Forest Town, the evil demons and evil beasts Beast Emperor controlled were all level 60 and above. The majority of those monsters were also at the chieftain rank. Even a Tier 1 player of the same level might not be able to solo a chieftain-ranked evil beast or evil demon. Not to mention, there were still the stronger Lord, High Lord, Great Lord, Grand Lord, and mythic-ranked evil demons and evil beasts. It might be a different story if Zero Wing could summon more Baphomets as it did during its battle against Heaven's Burial. If that was possible, Zero Wing might have a chance at victory. However, Xueqi had already stated to Zero Wing's upper echelon that he had summoned the 3 Baphomets using a consumable item and used up all the summoning chances during the previous battle. Trying to pick a fight with Beast Emperor while being at such a disadvantage clearly wasn't a wise decision. Of course we need to make a move. Xueqi nodded. In a resolute tone he continued, moreover, we're going to beat him up badly. He understood Beast Emperor's motives. Currently, Zero Wing was like the midday sun in Star Moon Kingdom. Through the prestige and reputation it earned from the previous war and the attractiveness of the advanced combat rooms, Zero Wing's growth potential was clear for all to see. If Beast Emperor did not take advantage of Zero Wing's current undeveloped state to suppress the guild or even deal it a heavy blow, Zero Wing would definitely become an even greater obstacle for him in the future. Hence, Beast Emperor had dispatched a considerable number of evil beasts and evil demons to surround the primordial divine ruin and prevent Zero Wing from obtaining the resources available there. With this, regardless of whether Zero Wing took action against this blockade or not, Beast Emperor would be able to suppress the guild's development. Most likely, Beast Emperor had already made a thorough investigation of Zero Wing's available combat power. After all, with how large Zero Wing had become, some information about the guild was bound to leak. Meanwhile, if other guilds were faced with Beast Emperor's blockade, they would most likely hesitate over whether to take action against Beast Emperor or not. Unfortunately for him, Xueqi would not hesitate. He might not have any way to deal with ancient Rock City at present, but dealing with the evil demons and evil beasts that had left the protection of the city was not entirely impossible. Notify Aqua and have her gather 1,500 experts at Zero Wing City. It's best if they're trustworthy. It's about time we let Beast Emperor know that the Orc Empire isn't his to monopolize. Shifeng instructed. 1,500 people? Isn't that a little too few? Gentle Snow was a little confused when she heard Shifeng's words. She had thought that Shifeng was planning to mobilize the entire guild to show Beast Emperor who's boss. Yet, now, Shifeng was gathering only 1,500 experts. No, they're more than enough. In any case, have these people gather at Zero Wing City as quickly and as secretively as possible, Shifeng said, revealing a mysterious smile. He then disconnected the call and retrieved the Abyss pendant. Previously, he had used the pendant to record the coordinates of the lost town. Now, he could teleport there directly without having to waste hours going from map to map. Lost towns were towns left behind by ancient civilizations in God's domain. Every one of them was very special. In the past, even the various superpowers of God's domain would fight desperately to claim them. It was naturally best if he secured the lost town in the Boneless Land as soon as possible. Boneless Land, Lost Town. By the time Shifeng arrived back at the lost town, some of the monsters in the town had already respawned. The number was not as high as when he first came to the town, but it was still extremely dangerous for current players to be here. However, he did not dwell on the matter as he activated Gale Domain and flew straight to the bottomless pit at the town center. The bottomless pit looked like a passage that led to a demon's nest. The top of the pit was covered entirely by a magic array with small openings located around the magic array's edges, meant for darkness stones. Shifeng soon arrived before one of the holes and placed one of the darkness stones he collected into it. With each darkness stone he inserted, the opening of the pit shrank slightly. At the same time, though, the pressure coming from the bottom of the pit intensified. Moreover, after he had started inserting the darkness stones into the magic array, an invisible barrier of sorts enveloped the entire lost town, preventing the use of skills, spells, and even magic scrolls. When Shifeng inserted the 10th darkness stone, an angry roar came from the pit. Following which, a level 65, Tier 2 demon appeared before him. As he couldn't use any of his skills or spells at the moment, he had to rely on his basic attributes to defeat the Tier 2 demon. Fortunately, the Bible of Darkness's passive effect still worked, and so the Tier 2 demon had its basic attributes greatly suppressed. Coupled with the fact that Shifeng's basic attributes far exceeded what an ordinary Tier 2 player at his level should possess, fighting the demon was a walk in the park. A few minutes later, the Tier 2 demon collapsed helplessly at his feet. Following which, he continued inserting darkness stones into the magic array and defeating the demons that came out with every 10 darkness stones inserted. By the 70th darkness stone inserted, the demon that came out of the bottomless pit had become a level 65, Tier 3 Great Lord. However, with the help of the Bible of Darkness, Shifeng still managed to overwhelm his opponent. When Shifeng inserted the 80th darkness stone, the mental pressure the bottomless pit exerted on him caused even his consciousness to become a little blurry. If other players were standing in his place, they would have long since lost consciousness and been forcibly logged out of the game. With the insertion of the final darkness crystal, a horrific aura surged out from the bottomless pit and washed over the entire lost town, paralyzing Shifeng's body when it swept over him. Following which, the magic array covering the bottomless pit started rising into the sky and eventually vanished. Meanwhile, the top of the bottomless pit shrank rapidly, transforming into a smald before disappearing without a trace as well. If other players were to visit the lost town in the future, they would not be able to tell that a massive hole had once existed in the middle of the town. After the bottomless pit disappeared, the mental pressure it exerted also faded away. When Shifeng's spirit had recovered, the sound of a system notification entered his ears. System. Congratulations! You have completed the epic ranked main storyline quest, Demon's Nest. Rewarding Lost Town's Town Order. System. Congratulations! You have obtained the Lost Town's Town Order. Do you wish to bind the Lost Town to yourself and become its master? Upon hearing these system notifications, Shifeng breathed out an involuntary sigh of relief. Had he failed to complete the quest, he would have been hunted down by a Tier 5 Demon King. Aside from hiding in NPC cities, he would have had no chance of surviving anywhere else. Following which, Xueqi agreed to become the Lost Town's master. With this, the Lost Town officially became the first town Zero Wing controlled in a neutral map. Once he constructed a guild residence here, guild members would be able to teleport freely to the Boneless Land without having to waste a lot of time on travel. Meanwhile, after he became the master of the town, the monsters originally present inside the town started vanishing one after another. Now, players could roam the town without worrying about monster attacks. In addition, all of the town's functions were made available to him. Around 30 seconds after the monsters had disappeared, NPCs suddenly started popping up all over the town, filling it with life. Meanwhile, Xueqi quickly made his way toward the main goal of his visit this time. The White Tower. Chapter 1703. Extraordinary Tower. Chapter 1703. Extraordinary Tower. The Lost Town's unique ability was the White Tower. After Xueqi had become the Lost Town's master, the defensive magic array protecting the White Tower also vanished. Now the beam attacks didn't target him when he stood within 100 yards of the tower, and silver divine runes had begun to appear on the White Tower's walls, radiating faint divine might. When Xueqi reached the tower's entrance, a translucent screen appeared before him, introducing the White Tower. Extraordinary Tower. A training tower constructed by an ancient civilization. The tower has a total of 3 floors, each providing training that is more intense than the one before. Pass all 3 floors to qualify as an extraordinary individual. Removing the seal on the first floor requires 10,000 magic crystals. Maintaining its operation costs 500 magic crystals per day. Only 100 people are allowed to train at a time. Removing the seal on the second floor requires 100,000 magic crystals. Maintaining its operation costs 5,000 magic crystals per day. Only 50 people are allowed to train at a time. Removing the seal on the third floor requires 1 million magic crystals. Maintaining its operation costs 20,000 magic crystals per day. Only 10 people are allowed to train at a time. So, I guess there's a price. Xueqi could not help his bitter smile as he read the Extraordinary Tower's introductory text. Although he had known that the various superpowers in the past had paid a certain price to use their Lost Town's abilities, he hadn't expected the price to be so steep. The first floor's operation cost of 500 magic crystals wasn't much of a problem. It was the equivalent of charging 5 magic crystals per person per day. However, not only was the price for removing the second floor seal 10 times that of the first floor, but its daily operation cost also increased by 10 times. This expenditure was even enough to drive first-rate guilds crazy. Furthermore, the number of training slots had been halved. It was the equivalent of charging 100 magic crystals per person per day. Meanwhile, super guilds would pale at the cost of unsealing and operating the third floor. Even a super guild would need a considerable time to accumulate the 1 million magic crystals needed to unseal the third floor, and the 20,000 magic crystal operation cost was simply outrageous. Most importantly, only 10 players could train on the third floor at the same time. Not even the current super guilds would dare to play with such a cost. It was the equivalent of spending 2,000 magic crystals for each player for a single day. Not even the word horrific was enough to describe this cost. However, after giving the matter some more thought, Xueqi found it reasonable. If players could reach the Void Realm and the higher realms of truth by paying a few hundred magic crystals, whoever controlled this lost town would become invincible. They could pump out batch after batch of peak experts for an insignificant price. It should be known that even though super guilds had complete legacies for the realms of refinement, the number of people they train at a time was very limited. Only the most talented would be chosen. This was because the training system's cost was simply too high. It was only reasonable that the Extraordinary Tower's operation costs would be so ridiculously high. It seems that I can only activate the first floor for now. After Xueqi finished reading the introduction, he undid the seal on the Extraordinary Tower's first floor. Although Zero Wing could not afford to unseal the second floor yet, it did not really matter. The first floor was more than enough for now. Aside from himself, no one in the guild had set foot in the realms of truth after all. By the time a considerable number of guild members had reached the realms of truth, Zero Wing would have accumulated enough magic crystals to unseal the second floor. After Xueqi chose to unseal the first floor, 10,000 magic crystals vanished from his bag. At the same time, the extraordinary tower began to transform. As if the tower had awakened from its slumber, some of the divine runes on its walls brightened. The ambient mana then rapidly gathered around the tower, and more divine runes began to light up, continuously expanding its sphere of influence. Initially, the extraordinary tower only collected mana from its immediate area, gradually increasing that radius until it enveloped the lost town. It then reached past the town's boundaries to several thousand yards past the lost town's walls. What a powerful mana surge! Is this the lost town's true power? Xueqi was greatly shocked as he watched the flowing white torrents of mana in the sky. Standing beside the extraordinary tower, Xueqi could feel the mana density around him rapidly increase. After absorbing mana for a short moment, the mana density around the tower could rival the magic tower, and it continued to rise. 1 minute. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. After around 10 minutes, the mana torrents began to fade. At this point, the divine runes covering the extraordinary tower shone brilliantly, giving the tower a sacred feeling. In addition, the lost town felt as if it had been resurrected as it brimmed with life. Grass, trees, and flowers grew rapidly all over the town. The mana density had also increased until it slightly surpassed the density in Stone Forest Town. One would find it very hard to believe that just some time ago, the lost town had been desolate. And this transformation was only the result of unsealing the first floor. Even Xueqi struggled to believe what he was seeing. If he undid all 3 of the extraordinary tower seals, what would he see then? After calming his excited heart, Xueqi entered the extraordinary tower. As Xueqi stepped through its doors, he discovered that the tower's interior had undergone quite a few changes. The first floor had felt dull and old during his previous visit, but now, it looked impressive. Everything seemed to glow, and Xueqi felt like he stood in a sports arena's main hall, which could fit tens of thousands of people. Dazzling mana weapons were on display all around him. The sight was mesmerizing. God's Domain's ancient civilizations were truly amazing. When Xueqi called up the first floor system interface and examined its listed contents, he was ecstatic. He had only been able to visually inspect the dark environment during his previous visit to the tower's first floor. Even so, he had counted over 10,000 mana weapons. Now that he was the lost town's master, he could inspect any information related to the town. What he learned about the first floor made him realize that he still underestimated the strength and foundation of the ancient civilization that had once ruled over this land. Mana weapons were extremely rare in God's Domain, but the first floor hall contained 24,671 of these weapons. There were enough mana weapons here to arm a 20,000-man army. The majority of the mana weapons here were Tier 1, with 1,823 Tier 2 mana weapons, and 12 Tier 3 mana weapons. To Xueqi's surprise, there were even 2 Tier 4 mana weapons in this hall. He was utterly stupefied. Even after learning about the Lost Town's unique ability, Xueqi had thought that the Demon's Nest quest had been more trouble than it was worth. If Primordial City hadn't activated, he would never have found a way to collect 100 Darkness Stones in time. But now that he had completed the quest and inspected the Extraordinary Tower's armory, he realized the Demon's Nest quest's reward was far beyond his expectations. Tier 4 mana weapons. Although only Tier 3 players and above could equip these weapons, they'd even perform better than fragmented legendary weapons. And this tower's first floor hall actually contained 2 Tier 4 mana weapons. When the guild's experts eventually reached Tier 3, he could help 2 of them become apex experts by arming them with these weapons. The upper echelon from an ordinary guild might not realize the benefit of 2 more apex experts, but Xueqi did. This meant that Zero Wing could occupy more towns and obtain even more resources. Zero Wing would not have to worry about lacking experts to protect its towns. I can't retrieve them? When Xueqi tried to collect the Tier 4 mana weapons through the system interface, the system informed him that he had yet to meet the requirement for such an action. To retrieve the 2 weapons, he had to promote the town to advanced rank. Xueqi could only shake his head and chuckle. Sure enough, the system won't let players obtain Tier 4 mana weapons so easily. However, Xueqi wasn't particularly disappointed. Developing the Lost Town was necessary regardless, and with Zero Wing's current foundations, Upgrading the town from a basic town to an advanced town before the guild's experts reached Tier 3 wouldn't be a problem. Following which, Xueqi retrieved every Tier 3 and Tier 2 mana weapon available. This had been his main goal in visiting the Lost Town, after all. With these mana weapons, the strength of his guild's experts could undergo a qualitative transformation. This was especially true for the players who would wield the Tier 3 mana weapons. After retrieving the mana weapons, Xueqi followed the spiral staircase to the second floor. Previously, he had been focused on obtaining the magic crystal treasure chest. As a result, he hadn't inspected the tower's second or third floor. Now that he was the Lost Town's master, however, he had to examine the tower properly. Chapter 1704. Master's Power. Chapter 1704. Master's Power. Once he arrived on the extraordinary tower's second floor, Xueqi discovered that it was still as dilapidated as it had been during his first visit. However, the hall had brightened considerably, and now, Xueqi could clearly see the armored ghosts that wandered the floor. As he had left it, the tyrant's soul stood quietly before the spiral staircase leading to the third floor. It's still here? Xueqi frowned at the tyrant's soul. He had assumed that every monster in the Lost Town had disappeared when he had taken control of it, but it would seem that wasn't the case. At the very least, the monsters in the extraordinary tower hadn't been affected. He had already experienced the tyrant's soul's strength. Although it was only a level 80 mythic monster, it wielded a saint weapon, a Tier 5 mana weapon. In terms of combat power, even the demon ruler enhanced mythic ranked Baphomet paled in comparison to the tyrant's soul. Trying to defeat such a powerful foe was simply too difficult right now. Yet, if he left the tyrant's soul alone, the soul doppelganger would continue to hunt him. Although the soul doppelgangers wasn't an issue yet, since the most recent had only been a level 70 chieftain, they would grow stronger each day. They might not pose a threat right now, but sooner or later, they would become a problem. The only way to avoid the soul doppelganger's constant annoyance was to defeat the tyrant's soul. However, slaying the tyrant's soul was easier said than done. Just the fact that it was a level 80 mythic monster made it challenging enough, not to mention its saint weapon. Even a 100-man team of Tier 2 experts might fail to take it down, not to mention Xueqi. No, that's not right. This is the extraordinary tower. As the master of the Lost Town, every construction within the town should be under my control. The tower should not be an exception. Thinking so, Xueqi opened the extraordinary tower system interface. In God's domain, players had full control of the buildings they owned. This meant that players had access to various functions, such as a building's governing mechanics and removing players from the building. Because of this, players in God's domain wouldn't cause trouble in other guilds and players' private properties, as doing so would put them at an overwhelming disadvantage. Without overwhelming strength, it was impossible to defeat a property's owner inside their own building. The extraordinary tower should be considered private property. It wasn't like a guild residence, which was owned by the guild, not an individual. In the case of shared properties like guild residences, the most players could do to ensure the residence's security was hire players and NPC guards to protect it. The residences didn't have an automated function to expel intruders. Sure enough, I can control the tower. Xueqi rejoiced when he discovered that he could manipulate the extraordinary tower system interface. Immediately, he retrieved the Bible of Darkness and a Summon Guard scroll. Shortly after, a Tier 3 Tomahawk Demon and Anna appeared before Xueqi. Dealing with the 9 wandering souls would be difficult enough for the level 80, Tier 3 Demon and a Tier 2 NPC like Anna, let alone facing off against the mythic ranked Tyrant Soul. The 9 wandering souls were all level 80 Grand Lords, and if they worked together, they could easily overwhelm Anna and the Tier 3 Demon. However, Xueqi did not mind. He then instructed Anna summon her Golden Giant and Rock Guardians. Anna's actions immediately attracted the Tyrant Soul's attention, and the mythic monster abruptly opened its eyes. Despicable thief! You dare to show yourself before me again? I will tear your soul to pieces. The Tyrant Soul quickly recognized Xueqi's aura, its eyes glowing red with rage. It bellowed with fury and vanished. Meanwhile, the wandering souls turned to charge at Xueqi. Even Xueqi grew nervous while facing a level 80 mythic monster and 9 level 80 Grand Lords. Seal. Not daring to be careless, Xueqi immediately utilized his special privilege as the tower's owner. Suddenly, countless chains appeared around the tyrant's soul and wandering souls. Following which, the 10 monsters' basic attributes plummeted, falling to 50% of their original values in the blink of an eye. They couldn't use their skills or spells, either. Suppressed, the tyrant's soul was forcefully revealed. The Tier 3 Tomahawk Demon then charged at the tyrant's soul. Seeing this, the tyrant's soul wielded its blue lightning blade and swung it at the Tomahawk Demon's battle axe. When the two weapons clashed, a storm began to brew in the hall. The impact also forced the Tomahawk Demon to retreat by 3 steps, its battle axe slightly vibrating. Surprisingly, the tyrant's soul had also slid back 4 steps, the lightning blade in its hands instantly shattering. Although the two monsters had only clashed once, the difference in their strengths was obvious. The Demon Ruler enhanced Tomahawk Demon definitely triumphed over the tyrant's soul. Fortunately, the 10 rock giants were able to hold back the 10 Grand Lord-ranked wandering souls by themselves. This allowed the Golden Giant to join the Tomahawk Demon against the tyrant's soul. Meanwhile, Anna continuously bombarded the tyrant's soul with Tier 2 spells. Naturally, Xueqi didn't hold back either as he charged into the fight. With the Tomahawk Demon and Golden Giant serving as MTs, fighting the tyrant's soul became very easy. Xueqi was able to deal around -6,000 damage with his normal attacks, while his skills dealt damage in the tens of thousands. Although his damage couldn't compare to Anna and the 2 Tier 3 summon creatures, who dealt hundreds of thousands of damage, he still helped to shave away the tyrant's soul's HP. Following which, the tyrant's soul received a one-sided beating as its HP continued to drop. 98%, 95%, 90%. Eventually, the tyrant's soul became thoroughly enraged and tried to summon its saint weapon, but despite chanting the incantation, the saint weapon was nowhere to be seen. As a result, it could only watch helplessly as its HP decreased. With its basic attributes heavily suppressed and unable to use its spells and skills, the tyrant's soul was likely the most miserable mythic monster in the game right now. Not even the system had expected Xueqi to accomplish the near-impossible feat of collecting 100 darkness stones and acquire the lost town before dealing with the extraordinary tower's boss. However, as a result of Xueqi's unconventional way of acquiring the lost town, the tyrant's soul couldn't use its abilities. This was especially true for its saint weapon. If the tyrant's soul were at its peak and had the aid of a Tier 5 mana weapon, not even the Tier 4 Valkyrie would be its match. One could just imagine how powerful the tyrant's soul truly was. It was definitely invincible among those of the same level. Unfortunately, the tyrant's soul couldn't use its skills or spells, let alone summon its saint weapon. Although the tyrant's soul had a maximum HP of 210 million even after the suppression, its HP fell steadily under Xueqi and his minions' assault. 80%, 50%, 20%. Time passed quickly, and eventually, the tyrant's soul's HP fell to 20%. Due to the rough battle, the monster's armor was now in tatters. However, despite losing most of its HP, the tyrant's soul could only use normal attacks. It couldn't even go berserk like normal monsters did after their HP reached a certain point. Finally, after over 30 minutes, the tyrant's soul's HP fell below the 1%. Xueqi then activated Divine Providence and arrived beside the mythic monster. His swords transformed into streaks of dazzling light that tore through the tyrant's soul's unguarded side. Flame burst. Damages exceeding -60,000 appeared above the tyrant's soul's head, one after another. By the time Xueqi had exhausted all of Flame Burst's 16 attacks, the tyrant's soul's HP had reached 0. The mythic monster released an agonizing scream before transforming into particles of light and disappearing. To Xueqi's disappointment, the tyrant's soul had only dropped its dilapidated armor pieces and 2 items. However, Xueqi heard the sound of a system notification after the tyrant's soul had died, and when he heard its message, he was stunned. System. Congratulations! You have slain the tyrant's soul, rewarding a town building order. Chapter 1705. Mana Equipment Set. Chapter 1705. Mana Equipment Set. A Town Building Order. Feng's mind blanked for a moment when he saw the tattered parchment that had abruptly appeared in his hands. Town building orders were incredibly precious in God's domain. Normally, the item could only be obtained from securing the first kill of a special field boss or epic ranked or higher group quest. A town building order was far more valuable than a captured town. This was because the town building order granted players the freedom to build a town in almost any location they desired. They could even construct the town in a neutral map. This was where the town building order truly shined. Neutral maps didn't have teleportation points, and players had to rely on their own feet to reach these maps. Moreover, very few neutral maps contained towns or cities. In the case of the Orc Empire, capturable towns and cities had only appeared due to an expansion pack. Trying to find a pre-made town to capture in other neutral maps was a dream. Of course, the Orc Empire's natural towns and cities had their flaws. They lacked some of the functions that normal guild towns and cities possessed. For example, they couldn't be promoted. Regardless of how well guilds managed these towns and cities, they would remain at the same rank they started with. Meanwhile, the town constructed with a town building order didn't have such restrictions. It could be promoted into a city without issues. However, one had to pay a considerably higher price to use a town building order in a neutral map. It would cost, at the very least, several, possibly dozens of times more than building a town within a kingdom or empire. This was because neutral maps were not considered safe areas. In fact, they were home to many races that were hostile to humans. Naturally, setting up a town in enemy land would be more costly. The higher leveled the neutral map was, the more it would cost to construct a town there. Most importantly, guild towns and cities in neutral maps would face frequent monster attacks. Surviving in these neutral maps would also be much harder than within a kingdom or empire's borders. Hence, not all guilds that had been lucky enough to find a town building order had chosen to construct their towns in neutral maps. Rather, they lacked the ability and funds to build a town in a neutral map. Feng had never expected to obtain a town building order so soon in this life. Originally, he had planned to wait for the guild's main force to reach level 60 before challenging a few special field bosses that he knew the locations of. But now, he had a town building order 10 levels earlier than expected. Forget it. It's better to get one earlier than later. At most, I'll just have to adjust my original plan. Feng smiled before storing the town building order. He then set his sights on the other items the Tyrant's Soul had dropped while he had Anna and the Tier 3 demon clean up the remaining monsters. As a mythic monster, the Tyrant's Soul should have dropped a lot of items. Yet, the boss had a surprisingly low number. Including the tattered equipment the Tyrant's Soul dropped, the boss had only dropped 6 items. Feng immediately picked up the tattered equipment pieces and inspected them. These equipment pieces had clearly existed for an extremely long time. Many areas of the pieces had fallen prey to corrosion. If they were tossed to the roadside, nobody would likely spare them a second glance. However, Feng was instantly ecstatic after he inspected their attribute panels. Mana equipment. As expected of the Extraordinary Tower's guardian boss. Feng's eyes glowed with excitement as he gazed at the 4 tattered pieces of equipment before him. Mana equipment was similar to mana weapons. Both were consumables and could offer a significant boost to players' combat power. Only, mana equipment was extremely difficult to produce, far more so than mana weapons. As a result, mana equipment was scarcer than mana weapons. Meanwhile, the 4 pieces of mana equipment before him made up a complete set. They were the hands, chest, legs, and boots of the Judgment set, a Tier 2 mana equipment set. Individually, these 4 pieces had the basic attributes to rival epic equipment. Only, they did not possess any additional skills. In return for their lack of skills, though, the 4-piece Judgment set included 2 ridiculously strong set effects. 2-piece set effect. Mana Stimulation. Passively improves physique by 30% and reaction speed by 20%. Forms a mana shield around the wearer that weakens spell effects by 50% and reduces physical damage received by 30%. 4-piece set effect. Light of Judgment. Stimulates the runes on every set piece at the cost of durability. When active, increases all attributes by 800 points, strength by 90%, endurance by 60%, and agility by 60%. Sustaining Light of Judgment reduces 1 durability point from every set piece each minute. The mana equipment set's attributes rendered Feng speechless. Although he had been a guild leader in the past, his guild had only been a second-rate guild. The information he had been able to get his hands on had been very limited. Although he had known that mana equipment was very powerful, he hadn't realized exactly how powerful. Now that he had seen one of these set's attributes, he finally understood why mana equipment was so powerful. The basic attributes it provided could rival epic equipment of the same level, and when operating at maximum capacity, its buffs were even more impressive than a berserk skill. An 800-point increase to all attributes was simply unimaginable for Tier 2 players. Both the berserk skills that players learned and those from equipment generally only boosted the player's basic attributes. In other words, the higher a player's basic attributes were, the more effective their berserk skills would be. Meanwhile, when level 60, Tier 2 experts used a berserk skill, excluding the percentage buffs from weapons and equipment, they would generally gain around 1,300 to 1,500 points to their main attribute. The boost to the other basic attributes was far smaller. Yet, Judgment of Light offered a fixed increase of 800 points to every basic attribute. That was the equivalent of a level 60, Tier 2 expert gaining 50% or higher boost to their attributes. After including the percentage buffs Judgment of Light provided, the player's overall improvement would be terrifying. Xueqi even suspected that he could gain as much strength with Judgment of Light as he did from Heavenly Dragon's power, which was above average compared to other berserk skills. It was a pity that the Judgment set was a class-specific set equipment and could only be used by Guardian Knights. If Kola equipped this set, he should even be able to tank mythic monsters of the same level. Xueqi began to fantasize as he examined the Judgment set. If Kola wore the Judgment set with his Titan Guard, he'd become the strongest MT in God's domain. Following which, Xueqi stored the mana equipment set and set his sights on the last two items the Tyrant's Soul had dropped. One of them was an old key, while the other was a Tier 4 magic scroll. The Tier 4 magic scroll was a Tier 4 domain scroll, and the key would unlock the magic crystal treasure chest on the tower's top floor. Since he had stolen some of the treasure chest's contents during his last visit, the Tyrant's Soul had learned its lesson and locked it, making it impossible for Xueqi, or anyone for that matter, to steal any more items. Now that Xueqi had the key though, he could open the treasure chest and retrieve the remaining items. Previously, he hadn't had much time to loot the treasure chest, and in the end, he had only claimed 5 items. However, every one of those 5 items could even invoke a super guild's envy. Xueqi and his minions then dealt with the remaining 9 wandering souls and collected 15 pieces of level 70 secret silver and fine gold equipment before he made his way to the tower's top floor. The magic crystal treasure chest hadn't moved from its original position. However, the chest now sported a massive, golden padlock. A single glance told Xueqi had no hope of destroying the lock as he was now, but after using the key, he removed the lock in 5 seconds. Lifting the treasure chest's lid, an aurora of light escaped, which was so dazzling that anyone could see it from anywhere in the lost town. Sure enough, this chest still has a lot of treasures. Xueqi's heart pounded with excitement as he looked at the 6 items inside the treasure chest. He immediately began to appraise them, one after another. Of the 6 items, 3 were Tier 2 skill books. One was a Tier 2 taboo skill for assassins called Indiscriminate Killing, one was a Tier 2 spell for elementalists called Elemental Mirror, and one was a Tier 2 passive skill for rangers called Precision Shooting. The other 3 items included a Tier 3 mana staff, a magic tower design, and the last was the Guardian Puppet design. It's no wonder why the players and powers that obtained gold magic crystal treasure chests had never said a word about their harvests. So this is why. Realization dawned on Xueqi when he saw the Guardian Puppet design. He had wondered what made the gold magic crystal treasure chests so special that almost no player or power had ever mentioned obtaining one during his previous life. None of the 5 items he had gained during his first visit were enough to tempt a super guild to put everything it had into obtaining one of these treasure chests. However, after taking a look at the Guardian Puppet design, he understood. This Guardian Puppet design alone was many times more valuable than every other item in the gold magic crystal treasure chest. It was so valuable that superpowers would wage an all-out war with each other to obtain it. Chapter 1706. Guild Treasure. Looking at the Guardian Puppet design in his hands, Xueqi could not help but inhale deeply as he began scrutinizing it. In the past, Guardian puppets were something exclusive to the various superpowers and an extreme few large guilds. Every guardian puppet was treated as a priceless treasure and was the symbol of a guild's foundations. Almost nobody would choose to sell their guardian puppet unless absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, the ones that got sold had been furiously contested over by countless powers. The guardian puppet had been in great demand because it was ancient technology that had been lost in time. Without a proper design, players couldn't replicate the technology since the production of the guardian puppet involved too many fields of study such as alchemy, forging, and engineering. Moreover, every subclass had to be at the master rank at the very minimum. Only after gathering the masters of these subclasses could players produce a guardian puppet. However, according to rumors, just the materials needed for one production attempt cost over 2,000 gold. Far more expensive than making a slightly below-average piece of epic equipment. The final cost for making the guardian puppet would simply be unimaginable. Meanwhile, the reason why the guardian puppet was so valuable was its frightening combat power. Even a level 0 player could instantly become a monster-like existence with the help of the guardian puppet. It was a war weapon that no epic item or even fragmented legendary item could compare to. To a guild, the guardian puppet was a priceless treasure. In the past, there were some first-rate guilds that dared to provoke even superpowers yet managed to live to tell the tale. The secret behind their survival was their possession of guardian puppets. Even an ordinary guardian puppet had the combat power of a Tier 3 existence. Meanwhile, the guardian puppet design Xueqi currently held in his hands was for bronze-ranked guardian puppets. The bronze guardian puppet possessed strength at the peak of Tier 3, and any player controlling the puppet could wield this strength as if it was their own. Moreover, unlike summoned creatures, which would disappear after a certain duration, guardian puppets would not disappear unless destroyed. Regardless of how far players developed in God's domain, combat power at the peak of Tier 3 would never become obsolete, because many players could not even reach Tier 3. As expected of a bronze guardian puppet, just the materials needed for one production attempt cost over 3,000 gold. Moreover, a master forger would only have a 30% success rate at completing the forging portion. The success of the final assembly isn't even guaranteed. It's no wonder the various superpowers treated their puppets like their own babies. Xueqi was inwardly astonished as he looked at the list of required materials stated on the design. However, after giving the matter some thought, he found the price to be reasonable. The bronze guardian puppet possessed combat power at the peak of Tier 3 and could be used indefinitely. If a guild could produce several hundred of these puppets now, it would basically be invincible. After all, there was no level requirement for controlling a guardian puppet. The only limiting factor was one's skillfulness at controlling the puppet. It seems there's a need to place greater focus on Candlelight's development. Xueqi could not wait for the day Zero Wing could have its own guardian puppets. Although the materials needed to produce the bronze guardian puppet were rare, aside from the main material, fine titan ingot, the other materials could be collected in bulk relatively easily. The main problem was the requirement of various kinds of lifestyle masters. Without the necessary lifestyle masters, the odds of producing the guardian puppet were zero. If Zero Wing could mass-produce bronze guardian puppets, whether it was in team battles or siege battles, they would become a formidable support since they dealt increased damage to magic arrays and buildings. Moreover, they were much more powerful than Tier 3 summoned creatures. Just as Xueqi was figuring out ways to further improve the standards of lifestyle players in the Candlelight trading firm, he suddenly received a call from Gentle Snow. Guild leader, I just received good news. Heaven's Burial, Singular Burial and Lei Jingyang fell out with each other. The guild has already been disbanded. However, Singular Burial joined Blackwater with some of his trusted aides and guild experts. Currently, Singular Burial is bringing his men to the primordial divine ruin. By the looks of it, they plan on reaching Primordial City by relying on various resources Blackwater provided them, Gentle Snow said, smiling. Heaven's Burial's destruction was something she and the rest of Zero Wing's upper echelon had anticipated. Only, they had not expected Heaven's Burial to disband so quickly. Caught off guard, they had a hard time taking over the shops located in the various cities Heaven's Burial ruled before, many of which were snatched away by other guilds. However, Heaven's Burial's sudden disbandment also saved Zero Wing plenty of trouble. At the very least, there was no longer any need to wage price wars with Heaven's Burial shops in Starmoon Kingdom. Nor was there any need to dispatch larger armies to capture Heaven's Burial's guild towns. So they've given up on Star Moon Kingdom and are shifting their focus to Primordial City? Xueqi could not help but chuckle. Looking at Gentle Snow, he asked, "Have you gathered the necessary manpower yet?" "As you've requested, I personally contacted every one of the selected candidates and had them secretly gather at Zero Wing City. Currently, we're just short by a few dozen people before we have the required number," Gentle Snow replied. "Good. Have them gather at Zero Wing City's candlelight trading firm. I'll head over there myself right now. It's about time we gave Beast Emperor and Singular Burial a little surprise," Xueqi said with a nod before disconnecting the call. Even now, Gentle Snow still had no idea what Xueqi intended to do by summoning 1,500 experts. However, she continued notifying the selected experts to gather at Zero Wing City's candlelight trading firm. Meanwhile, after ending the call, Xueqi spent 3,000 gold to have the NPCs in the Lost Town construct a guild residence. At the same time, he hired 100 level 150, Tier 2 NPC guards and 1,000 level 150, Tier 1 NPC guards for town defense. With this, the town should have no problems fending off monster attacks in the short term. Once that was done, he took out a guild transfer scroll and teleported to Zero Wing City's residence. After the heaven-defying battle at Stone Forest Town, the number of players visiting Zero Wing City each day had skyrocketed. Now, the city's player population had already shot past the 4 million mark. Just the entrance fees collected each day totaled roughly 22,000 gold. Not to mention, there was still the income from Stone Forest Town, the candlelight trading firm, and many other enterprises. Now that there was no longer any need to continue placing bounties on Heaven's Burial's members, all that income could be invested into the guild's development. Meanwhile, even after including the guild's various expenses such as providing guild benefits and the guild's expansion, Zero Wing still saved up around 15,000 gold per day. This income could make any first-rate guild crazy with jealousy. For first-rate guilds, just being able to get their guild to operate normally was already a challenging task. Moreover, the guild benefits they offered their members weren't even comparable to Zero Wing's. It would not be an exaggeration to say that no first-rate guild in God's domain could compete with Zero Wing in terms of wealth. After returning to Zero Wing's residence, Xueqi first went to the guild warehouse to retrieve some materials obtained from team dungeons and through trading with the various first-rate guilds. Then, he started producing magic array scrolls for the Divine Beast's Descent magic array. Once he completed 2 sets, he took out the 2 remaining elemental sources from his bag and combined them with the magic array scrolls. Suddenly, the 2 sets of magic array scrolls started evolving. Originally, Divine Beast's Descent was an intermediate magic array, but after the fusion was completed, the magic arrays exuded an aura that was even more powerful than advanced magic arrays. Following which, Xueqi stored the 2 sets of magic array scrolls and left for the candlelight trading firm. By the time he arrived at Zero Wing City's candlelight trading firm, Gentle Snow and the others were already waiting for him. Currently, the lounge on the 2nd floor was filled with players, every one of whom was curiously wondering why their vice guild leaders had gathered them here today. However, when they saw Xueqi, who was currently disguised as Black Flame, enter the lounge, the entire room suddenly fell silent. Guild leader. Why is the guild leader here? Were we gathered here today under the guild leader's orders? Everyone in the lounge could not help but discuss Xueqi's sudden appearance, excited expressions on their faces. "I believe you all must have heard that our brothers stationed over at the Primordial Divine Ruin have been surrounded and killed by evil demons and evil beasts. In fact, Beast Emperor, the person controlling those monsters, has even announced that Zero Wing's members are forbidden from setting foot into the Primordial Divine Ruin, and any who dare do so will be killed without question. Although that place isn't our guild's territory, I feel that we should still make a response. Hence, I have gathered you all here today so that we can prepare a surprise for Beast Emperor and his allies. We are going to destroy every evil beast and evil demon present near the Primordial Divine Ruin. We will let the various major powers know that Zero Wing is not a pushover." When Xueqi was done speaking, gasps filled the entire venue. Even Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose, who stood beside Xueqi, could not help but turn to look at their guild leader, both of them thinking that Xueqi had lost his mind. Destroy every evil beast and evil demon present near the Primordial Divine Ruin. How can such a feat possibly be accomplished? Chapter 1707. Tier 2 Legion. Chapter 1707. Tier 2 Legion. The silence persisted for a short moment before a commotion erupted inside the lounge. Everyone felt that Xueqi's intentions were too crazy. Setting aside how many evil beasts and evil demons were present around the primordial divine ruin, just the mythic evil beasts and mythic evil demons, there would be more than enough to annihilate their team of 1,500 players. Not to mention, they were attacking in enemy territory, which meant plenty of enemy reinforcements. I'm sure you all are worried and afraid. If you feel that you are not up to it, you may leave. I won't force any of you to take part in this operation. After all, the operation this time is indeed very dangerous. If you wish to take part in it, though, come to me to register. Note that you will also have to sign a confidentiality contract to take part in this operation, Xueqi said in a calm tone after carefully observing everyone present. The reason why Zero Wing was contesting with other guilds over various resources was to provide its members with better benefits. Meanwhile, the majority of the resources obtained would go to elite and core members of the guild. If the guild's core members were not even willing to put themselves at risk for the guild, then when the guild faced greater pressure in the future, nobody would know what kind of actions these core members would take. Thus, there was naturally no need for the guild to continue nurturing such ungrateful core members. Previously, when Zero Wing was still in its infancy, he could tolerate feeding the guild's elite and expert members without asking much in return. However, now that Zero Wing was no longer in its infancy and had already stepped onto the path of becoming a superpower, the guild would need much more resources than before to continue developing. His latest acquisition, the Lost Town, only made the guild even more desperate for resources. Now, he could neither afford nor tolerate having freeloaders in his guild. Hence, there was a serious need to adjust the way the guild operated. The first thing he was going to change was how benefits were offered to guild members. A guild member's contribution would now also be an important criterion in deciding what kind of benefits they would receive. Strength was no longer the only determining factor. The more a person contributed to the guild, the more returns they would receive. In the past, many large guilds had failed to pay attention to this aspect and simply focused on recruiting strong players without bothering with whether those players were truly loyal to the guild or not. As a result, when the guild faced an insurmountable foe, it crumbled even before the battle had begun. In contrast, some small guilds with average strength were able to unite their members to fight against first-rate guilds and maintain a considerably large territory for themselves. Xueqi planned to institute the changes starting with this operation. After he was done speaking, everyone present fell into a daze for a while. At this time, Gentle Snow, Aqua Rose, and the other core members in the upper echelon of the guild quickly realized what Xueqi was trying to do. Hence, they kept their mouths shut and quietly watched from the sides. We'll definitely get ourselves killed by going over there. Wonderful. I've been itching to let those bastards know Zero Wing's amazingness. Guild leader, just give us our orders. For a time, everyone present discussed among themselves. The members of the guild's main force then went up to Xueqi to register. Only a small number of players that were recently promoted into Dark Gods members hesitated over their decision. After the registration process continued for around a dozen minutes, Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose could not help but breathe out a sigh of relief. Of the 1,500 players they gathered, over 1,400 had registered to join the operation, with only several dozen players declining. However, this situation also served as a stern reminder to the two of them. The players they had gathered here today were all experts who they believed were trustworthy, yet there were still some people that had betrayed their expectations. If they were to conduct such a test for the other expert and elite members, the percentage of those who would abandon the guild during its time of need would most likely be much higher. Meanwhile, many more expert and elite players would be joining the guild in the future. There are over 1,400 people remaining? Xueqi was quite satisfied with this outcome, which could also be considered the result of the past few selections Zero Wing had conducted. Not to mention, most of the members that chose to abstain from the operation this time were mainly recent recruits. Following which, he turned to look at Aqua Rose and Gentle Snow and said quietly, "From today onward, start restructuring the guild ranks. Regardless if one is an expert member or an elite member, their positions are not fixed. If members fail to obtain a sufficient number of guild achievements and guild contribution points corresponding to their rank each month, they'll be demoted by a rank. I don't care how strong they are. They can be demoted all the way to a guild reserve member and eventually kicked out of the guild. Upon hearing Shifeng's words, Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose nodded in agreement, both of them thinking that it was about time for them to make new guild regulations. After all, the current Zero Wing was no longer the same Zero Wing as before. Previously, as Zero Wing was lacking manpower and was constantly waging war with other guilds, they had no choice but to offer excellent and tempting benefits with lax conditions in order to keep the guild alive. In contrast, first-rate guilds got to develop in a stable environment for long periods. Not only were their rules and regulations clearly defined, but their contribution and achievement systems were also perfected. This allowed them to prevent freeloaders from appearing in their guilds. After everyone signed the confidentiality contract, Shifeng distributed Tier 2 mana weapons to all the Tier 1 players present. As for Aqua Rose, Gentle Snow, and the other Tier 2 experts there, Shifeng handed them Tier 3 mana weapons. This situation stupefied Shadow Sword, who currently wielded the Tier 3 mana weapon Edgeless Blade. He had experienced the strength of a Tier 3 mana weapon for himself. Even if he simply wielded the weapon normally, he could exert power at the Tier 3 standard. If he pushed the weapon to its maximum potential, then he was basically an unstoppable god of slaughter. Meanwhile, for the operation this time, a total of 12 Tier 2 players would be taking part in it, yet Shifeng had actually given every one of them a Tier 3 mana weapon. Shadow Sword found this situation to be simply incredible. However, the most frightening matter would still have to be the fact that every one of the Tier 1 experts present received a Tier 2 mana weapon. That was over 1,400 players they were talking about. In other words, at this moment, Zero Wing had essentially gained an additional 1,400 plus Tier 2 experts. With the correct conditions, a 100-man team of Tier 2 experts could definitely raid a mythic boss of the same level. Meanwhile, like Shadow Sword, after Aqua Rose and the others took a look at the attributes of their respective Tier 3 mana weapons, they were similarly dumbfounded. Guild Leader, did you raid the armory of a kingdom? We won't get hunted by some kingdom's army, right? Blackie could not help but gulp nervously as he looked at the Tier 3 mana staff he held, which completely surpassed his epic rank staff in terms of raw power. The other Tier 2 experts nodded their heads, seconding Blackie's words. They never thought that their guild actually possessed such a hidden hand. Even those in the upper echelon like themselves were utterly clueless about this. Just by holding the Tier 3 mana weapons, they could feel that their combat power had increased drastically. At the very least, the raw power of their attacks should be at the Tier 3 standard already. Although they did not possess the physique and skills of a Tier 3 player, they were still confident that, unless their opponent was fully geared in epic equipment, they could easily stomp on any Tier 2 expert right now. At this moment, Aqua Rose and Gentle Snow finally understood why Shifeng would try to annihilate the evil beasts and evil demons around the primordial divine ruin with such a small number of players. With so many experts boasting Tier 2 and Tier 3 combat power, they indeed possessed the qualifications to go up against the evil demons and evil beasts near the primordial divine ruin. While everyone was reeling from receiving the mana weapons, Shifeng took out 4 pieces of equipment and handed them to Cola. Originally, Cola wanted to say that his equipment was plenty excellent already and that there was no need for a replacement. However, once he inspected what Shifeng gave him, his eyes nearly fell out of their sockets. Without hesitation, he removed the level 50 fine gold set equipment he was wearing and replaced them with the mana equipment set from Shifeng. The moment Cola equipped the mana equipment set, the feeling he gave off transformed abruptly. Right now, Cola's aura gave even Aqua Rose and Gentle Snow intense pressure. Not to mention, the mana in the room was also surging toward him. Just standing beside the Guardian Knight felt stifling. Guild Leader, what kind of equipment did you give Cola? Did you give him 4 pieces of epic equipment? Gentle Snow asked curiously. At this moment, she could clearly feel that her attributes were inferior to Cola's. However, she currently had a piece of fragmented legendary equipment equipped, so it was simply unbelievable that Cola's basic attributes would be superior to hers. The only explanation she could think of for such a difference was that Cola had just equipped 4 pieces of epic equipment. No. It's Tier 2 mana equipment set. It's something similar to the mana weapons you all are using, Shifeng replied, shaking his head. He then turned to Cola and asked, how does it feel after you've equipped it? Guild Leader, this set is simply insane. I feel that I can tank even a mythic boss right now. Cola's eyes glowed with excitement as he looked at the 4 silvery pieces of equipment on him. When the surrounding crowd heard Cola's words, they could not help but gasp. From Cola's expression, They could tell that the Guardian Knight was not joking at all. However, realizing this only served to shock them even more. 4 pieces of mana equipment were actually enough to create an MT capable of tanking a mythic boss of the same level. This situation was simply too frightening. Relax. You'll have plenty of chances to show off later on, Xueqi said, chuckling. Following which, Xueqi had Aqua Rose recruit 176 trustworthy summoners from the guild's elite members for the upcoming operation, and had them sign confidentiality contracts as well. Move out. Our target is the primordial divine ruin. It's about time we let our enemies pay the price of blood. Xueqi commanded after seeing that everyone had gathered. Chapter 1708. Miraculous Hunt. Chapter 1708. Miraculous Hunt. Zero Wing City. 4 Towers of Elements. Due to 4 Towers of Elements teleportation function, the number of players that gathered at the 4 Towers of Elements increased with each passing day. Many among them belonged to the various adventurer teams and large guilds. This was because teleporting through the 4 Towers of Elements was the fastest way for players to reach the Orc Empire. Using this function, players could save up on over 10 hours of mounted travel time when traveling to the Orc Empire. Aside from being able to teleport into the Orc Empire, players could teleport to leveling maps around Zero Wing City. Although these leveling maps weren't high-resource maps, the easy travel method still made these maps attractive. Because of this, the 4 Towers of Elements weren't any less lively than the city's central district even though they stood at the edges of Zero Wing City, far from most of the city's attractions. Quite a few player shops had also risen around the towers. Among these player shops stood the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm, a trading firm Xueqi had been quite familiar with during his previous life. This trading firm was run by none other than Xueqi, one of Xueqi's old friends in the past. The Purple Pavilion Trading Firm's business was doing considerably well, and many adventurer teams players purchased items from its shop. Guild leader, is there a problem with that shop? Gentle Snow asked curiously when she noticed Xueqi staring at the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm. The Purple Pavilion Trading Firm? Following Xueqi's gaze, Aqua Rose said, based on our information, the trading firm is quite impressive. Its owner had rented a shop here before we had even revealed the 4 Towers of Elements teleportation function. The Purple Pavilion's owner also has amazing connections and offers many specialty products from other countries. The Purple Pavilion Trading Firm has used this opportunity to partner with quite a few well-known adventurer teams and purchase various rare materials from them at below market price. Right now, excluding the trading firms operated by the various large guilds, the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm ranks among the top 5 in Zero Wing City. However, based on our investigations, Purple Pavilion doesn't have a powerful backer. As a result, certain major trading firms have begun to take action against Purple Pavilion in secret. When Gentle Snow and the others heard Aqua Rose's explanation, they could not help but view the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm's owner in a new light. In God's domain, the competition between trading firms was just as intense as that between guilds. In fact, the competition between trading firms was far more intense. This was because guilds weren't the only ones operating trading firms in God's domain. Some independent players and adventurer teams had their own trading firms to earn more resources and coins, funding their personal development. Hence, God's domain had more trading firms than guilds. Thriving in such a competitive environment without a powerful backer was extremely difficult. The fact that the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm's shop ranked among the top 5 shops operated by non-guild entities in Zero Wing City proved how amazing it was. Aqua, have someone give the various shops in Zero Wing City a warning. I don't care what they do elsewhere, but nobody is allowed to play dirty in Zero Wing's towns and cities. If they're caught doing so, they should prepare to face the consequences, Xueqi quietly instructed, glancing at some of the players on the street who were clearly stalking the Purple Pavilion Trading Firm. Part of the development of guild towns and cities relied on the development of the shops in them. If Zero Wing couldn't provide sufficient security and fair competition for the independent merchant players in its towns and cities, these players would eventually refuse to conduct their business in Zero Wing's territories. Understood. Aqua Rose nodded. She immediately arranged for some of her subordinates to warn the various player-operated shops in Zero Wing City. After dealing with this matter, Xueqi and the others split into multiple groups and teleported to the Orc Empire's border at intervals. For this operation, Xueqi didn't just have his team members sign the confidentiality contract to keep their mouths shut about the mana weapons to avoid attracting other guilds' attentions. It also forced them to keep the operation itself a secret. Although this method didn't stop spies from simply logging out of the game and notifying their employers, Zero Wing would discover anyone who violated the contract the moment they logged out, since these players had been invited at the same time. Unless these spies wanted to blow their cover and lose all of their progress in the game thus far, they wouldn't dare log out. After arriving in the Orc Empire, everyone gathered in a predetermined location. Once Xueqi ensured that his team had arrived safely, he had them saddle up and make their way towards the primordial divine ruin. Each of these players was either an elite or expert in Zero Wing, so they all had their own guild mounts. A legion of majestic thunderwolves quickly traversed the Orc Empire's barren lands, and as it passed, the areas it left behind looked as if they had been ravaged by a powerful storm. However, even amongst this legion of majestic beasts, Xueqi's demonic flame tiger stood out like a sore thumb. Although the demonic flame tiger had shrunk to 3 meters in height after its evolution, eye-catching, pitch-black flames and arcs of silver electricity danced along its paws. The demonic flame tiger also radiated an aura that rivaled that of a high lord. It was difficult not to notice the beast. When other players encountered Zero Wing's legion, they grew nervous. This was because the orcs in the Orc Empire also rode gigantic battle wolves and battle tigers. At first, these players assumed that the Orc Empire's armies had ambushed them, and they had nearly turned and fled. However, after getting a closer look, they realized that the mount's riders were human, not robust orcs. Seeing this, they relaxed and sighed with relief. Crap! Who are those people? Almost all of them are using the same type of mount. Don't they look like Zero Wing's Thunderwolves? Those Thunderwolves are seriously cool. I wish I had one. Zero Wing? That shouldn't be possible. Those players are heading toward the primordial divine ruin, which is surrounded by evil beasts and evil demons. If they are Zero Wing's members, aren't they just heading towards their deaths? Could Zero Wing be trying to force their way into the ruin? That's impossible, right? There are more than 100,000 evil beasts and evil demons at the ruin. They'd even wipe out an army of several thousand experts in the blink of an eye. If not for that beast emperor wanting to avoid provoking every major power in the Orc Empire, he could easily stop anyone from entering the primordial divine ruin with his monster army. Zero Wing shouldn't be underestimated, either. The guild had already defeated Heaven's Burial's evil demon army. I've watched the recordings of that battle. Zero Wing had even faced down mythic-ranked evil beast and demons. Didn't you see Zero Wing summon those mythic monsters? There's no way Zero Wing can summon such powerful monsters again easily. The players that noticed Zero Wing's force discussed the guild's actions heatedly. News that Zero Wing had dispatched a force to the primordial divine ruin quickly spread. After all, it would be difficult for such a powerful army to avoid notice for long. Soon, the various major powers waiting to enter the primordial divine ruin began to discuss the matter as well. Zero Wing is taking action so soon. Is Zero Wing insane? Don't they know that there are over 100,000 evil demons and evil beasts guarding the primordial divine ruin? Zero Wing's actions confused all of the various large guilds' upper echelons. Brother Singular, like Beast Emperor has said, Zero Wing really couldn't hold back and has come running to us on its own. This is a good opportunity for us to take our revenge, Falling Fire said, a cold glint flashing in his eyes as he read the report his subordinate just sent him. We only lost because we didn't fully understand Zero Wing and fought them on their home turf. However, our battlefield will be set in the Orc Empire this time. We also have 8 mythic monsters under our command. Even if Zero Wing can summon more of those high demons to suppress our mythic monsters, we'll have plenty of Grand Lords and Great Lords to spare. We can annihilate this Zero Wing forces. Zero Wing. Singular Burial gnashed his teeth in anger when he heard the mention of the guild. His eyes turned bloodshot, and he growled, I won't let any of your members return alive this time. Zero Wing had thoroughly destroyed Heaven's Burial in their last battle. All of the time and effort he had invested in his guild's development had gone to waste. Just like that. Now, hatred for Zero Wing consumed his thoughts. The evil demons and evil beasts encircling the primordial divine ruin were a suggestion he had made to Beast Emperor. He had done so to cause as much trouble for Zero Wing as possible, impeding the guild's development. As soon as Singular Burial finished speaking, a spatial gate opened above him. Once the spatial gate opened fully, cloaked figures atop mounts jumped out, one after another. When these cloaked figures landed, everyone recognized the mounts as Zero Wing's Thunderwolves. What's going on? Zero Wing's members actually dare to charge straight into the evil demons and evil beasts' encirclement? Are they seeking death? Everyone gaped at Zero Wing's members when they realized who had emerged from the spatial gate. They had assumed that Zero Wing was simply putting up a strong front by marching into the Orc Empire. Even if Zero Wing truly intended to take action, the guild would employ hit-and-run tactics and target small groups of evil beasts and evil demons at most. However, the fact that Zero Wing's members had jumped straight into their enemies' ranks via spatial gate left them utterly baffled. Before anyone could react, Xueqi's gaze shifted toward the nearby Blackwater members. Kill them! Chapter 1709. Might of One Hitch. Zero Wing's sudden appearance had shocked the players at the primordial divine ruin. Xueqi's command to attack Blackwater's members only intensified their surprise. This is crazy. Zero Wing must be insane. They've actually barged into the evil demons and evil beasts' encirclement to attack Blackwater. The members from the various major powers and adventurer teams were stupefied as they watched Zero Wing's members charge into Blackwater's on their mounts. At a glance, it was clear that Zero Wing had dispatched less than 2,000 members to the primordial divine ruin. Even if all of them were experts, Blackwater's forces weren't to be trifled with. Although Blackwater had recently suffered a major loss, it had recruited many of Heaven's Burial's expert and elite members. The guild had sent 4,000 experts and 6,000 elites to the ruin this time, and the lowest leveled among them was level 49. Every one of these 10,000 players also wore top-tier equipment. An army of fewer than 2,000 experts stood no chance against Blackwater's forces. Moreover, the evil demons and evil beasts currently surrounded the primordial divine ruin. It wouldn't be long before these monsters arrived to support Blackwater's army. Zero Wing would have more opponents than just Blackwater's army. They would have to face 100,000 plus monsters as well. While the various large guilds wondered why Zero Wing had enacted such a ludicrous plan, the guild's mounted forces had almost reached Blackwater's members. Bastards! Falling Fire cursed as he commanded his players to fall into formation. Fortunately, the players Blackwater had dispatched to raid the primordial divine ruin were all well trained, and the 10,000-man army quickly took up arms. The 500-plus shield warriors and guardian knights formed two rows at the front, raising their shields as they prepared to stop their enemy's advance. Meanwhile, the clerics, oracles, and druids at the rear of the army began to cast their buffs on the army's MTs. Now the two human walls formed between the army and Zero Wing's members could even stop dozens of great lords of the same level, not to mention charging players. Meanwhile, the ranged forces between the shield warriors and guardian knights began to cast their offensive spells. Blackwater's army had far better reaction speed, combat standards, and far more combat experience than the various adventurer teams who fought others in the fields. The entire army moved as one, utterly organized. However, the berserkers leading Zero Wing's charge paid the blockade before them little heed. They didn't even bother to wait for their own shield warriors and guardian knights to catch up as they plowed into Blackwater's formation. The moment before Zero Wing's 100-plus berserkers clashed with Blackwater's MTs, a hint of excitement could be seen flashing in their eyes as they tightened their grips on their weapons. Suddenly, silver runes began to form on their weapons, and the ambient mana gathered around the berserkers' weapons. Without hesitation, the berserkers swung their weapons at the massive shields before them. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud explosions echoed throughout the area as the berserkers struck the enemy shields. Impossible! When Blackwater's MTs received the berserkers' attacks, they felt as if they had been hit by a truck. Not only did their shields tremble violently and their arms go numb, but they were also forced to take 2 or 3 steps back before they could stabilize themselves. However, before these MTs could regain their postures, Zero Wing's berserkers swung their weapons again, forcing these MTs backward once more. After 3 consecutive attacks, Zero Wing's berserkers had broken holes in Blackwater's defensive line. The berserkers then dashed toward the ranged players like frenzied beasts. Zero Wing broke through. The various major powers watching from a distance could not help but gape at the scene. Just 100+ berserkers had torn apart two defensive lines formed by over 500 level 49+ shield warriors and guardian knights. The clash between these melee players had lasted less than 2 seconds. It was as if Blackwater's shield warriors and guardian knights were made of paper and could barely take a hit. However, the players from these major powers knew that Blackwater's MTs all wore excellent equipment. The weakest piece they'd have on them would be level 45 fine gold rank. MTs of such caliber could easily join the various large guilds' main forces. As for their combat standards, they were all elite and expert players. A blockade of such powerful MTs shouldn't have a problem fending off a charge of dozens of great lords of the same level, yet it had shattered when assaulted by Zero Wing's 100+ berserkers. No matter how they looked at the situation, they simply could not bring themselves to believe it. What these players didn't know was that although these Zero Wing berserkers were only Tier 1 players, they could unleash Tier 3 power when they maxed out the Tier 2 mana weapons in their hands. Blackwater's defensive lines might be able to stop several dozen great lords of the same level, but it definitely couldn't stop the combined charge of over 100 great lords. Melee units, stop them. Do not let them reach our ranged unit. Falling Fire hurriedly commanded when he noticed Zero Wing's berserkers approach. However, before Falling Fire could even finish his words, one melee fighter from Blackwater after another was thrown into the air. Even when Blackwater's level 50 berserkers tried to stop Zero Wing's berserkers, the latter easily pushed them back. They lost a significant amount of HP when they crossed blades with Zero Wing's berserkers. After repulsing Blackwater's melee players, Zero Wing's berserkers charged toward Blackwater's ranged force like a sharpened sword. The berserkers blocked the incoming ranged attacks with little to no effort. In contrast to Blackwater's pitiful ranged attacks, the attacks Zero Wing's several hundred ranged players launched were basically unstoppable. When Blackwater's MTs tried to block these incoming attacks with their shields, their defensive postures shattered under a single blow, rendering them helpless against the following ranged attacks. Every ranged attack that struck an MT directly dealt over -20,000 damage, and Zero Wing's players only needed 3 ranged strikes to kill a Blackwater MT. Blackwater's healers hadn't even had enough time to save their allies. The difference between each side's healers was jaw-dropping. When Blackwater's healers cast healing spells with 1 or 2 second channeling times, the spells would restore around 10,000 of the target's HP. In contrast, when Zero Wing's healers used the same healing spells, their targets recovered nearly 20,000 HP. Meanwhile, Blackwater's ranged classes only dealt around -10,000 HP when they struck Zero Wing's berserkers on a direct hit, and the best among them only dealt around -13,000 damage. Zero Wing's healers could easily restore whatever HP their berserkers lost. The difference between the two forces was clear for all to see after the battle continued for a short moment. Like a group of ferocious beasts, Zero Wing's members devoured the lives of Blackwater's players, forcing Blackwater to retreat, again and again, as the army began to show signs of crumbling. The spectating crowd was dumbfounded. No matter how they thought about it, Blackwater should have had the upper hand, yet Zero Wing had an absolute advantage over its army. This didn't look like an actual battle. It was more of a one-sided beating. Zero Wing and Blackwater's strength simply weren't on the same level. So, this is the power of mana weapons? Gentle Snow, who commanded the battle from the rear, was indescribably shocked as she watched her players devour Blackwater's forces. They were too strong. Although the branch guild she commanded in the Black Dragon Empire hadn't experienced as many battles as the main branch in Starmoon Kingdom, her guild had plenty of experience in combat involving thousands of players. Hence, she knew that such a large-scale battle wouldn't reach a conclusion quickly. At the very least, the battle would last 15 to 30 minutes before anyone could tell which side had the upper hand. Yet, not even 1 minute had passed since the battle between Zero Wing and Blackwater had begun. However, even an ordinary player could see that Blackwater had no hope of winning this fight. At this rate, Zero Wing wouldn't even need 10 minutes to annihilate Blackwater's 10,000 players. Only Xueqi knew how typical this battle's outcome was. Blackwater's players weren't fighting 1,400+ Tier 1 players, but a force of 1,400+ Tier 2 experts. With so many Tier 2 experts, Zero Wing could even wipe out an army of 30,000 Tier 1 players without trouble, much less a force of 10,000. This was the difference between tiers. Silence fell over the primordial divine ruin as players witnessed Zero Wing's overwhelming power. Even the spectating superpowers wore somber expressions as they watched the massacre before them. Black Flame. Do you really think that this is the only force I've prepared for the primordial divine ruin? Pay for your foolishness. As Singular Burial watched Blackwater's army slide backward, he showed neither surprise nor fear, simply revealing an arrogant sneer. He then turned to the cloaked, bandaged man beside him and snapped, "Flame Blood, it's time for you to take action." Nodding in response, Flame Blood immediately took a grey crystal ball from his bag and began to chant an incantation. He wasn't within a kingdom or empire right now, so it didn't matter if he revealed his identity as an evil god's temple player since there weren't any NPCs around to hunt him down. Suddenly, clouds of pitch-black fog started to emerge from the crystal ball. The fog rapidly transformed into the figures of 10 evil demons. These summoned evil demons were all level 70 Grand Lords, which he had actually prepared for the Guardian boss on the ruin's 4th floor. Under Flameblood's command, the 10 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons charged at Zero Wing's army. Just before they reached Zero Wing's front line and could swing down their massive claws, a figure appeared before them. This figure was none other than Shadow Sword. Scram! Shadow Sword tightened his grip on the edgeless blade and executed a sweeping slash with the rune-covered greatsword. Tier 2 skill, Blade Storm. A silver storm engulfed 10 evil demons, sending them flying over a dozen yards away. When the monsters crashed into the ground, a damage of over -200,000 appeared above each of their heads. Chapter 1710. Gathering Place of Experts. Chapter 1710. Gathering Place of Experts. After Shadow Sword's first attack, he used Charge, accelerating toward the nearest evil demon as it was standing back up. When he got close to his target, Shadow Sword raised his great sword high. Once again, silver divine runes lit up along the edgeless blade's body. Shadow Sword then executed Blade of Waves, one of the Sea God's Apostle class's Tier 2 legacy skills. Blade of Waves was also the most powerful Tier 2 legacy skill he had learned. Currents of blue mana circled the edgeless blade. When Shadow Sword swung his great sword at the evil demon before him, the mana weapon transformed into a 40-yard-long blade of water. Players in the distance only saw a dark blue horizontal wall suddenly bisect the battlefield. -513,842. A frightening amount of damage appeared above the evil demon's head when the water blade cut through its body. The blade also slammed into other players, and whether they wore plate armor or cloth, all of their HPs plummeted to 0. Their cleaved bodies then transformed into particles of light and disappeared from the battlefield. After the attack, the evil demon that took the hit fell into a heavily injured state, his combat power drastically decreasing. The surrounding Blackwater members expressed their shock and terror when they saw this. Strong. Too strong. Not only had Shadow Sword repelled 10 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons with one attack, but his follow-up attack had also heavily injured one Grand Lord-ranked evil demon and killed over a dozen players. Even Shield Warriors and Guardian Knights had died instantly. How is he so powerful? Confusion filled the experts from the various major powers as they watched Shadow Sword from a distance. Even if Shadow Sword were a Tier 2 Berserker and had used a Berserk skill, his damage should not have been so frightening. He should have been lucky to hold his ground against a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon, yet even without activating a Berserk skill, Shadow Sword had heavily injured the Grand Lord. This utterly destroyed their understanding of Tier 2 classes' combat power. Damn it! Flame, split the other evil demons up and have them attack independently. Singular Burial commanded once he saw that the evil demons were no match for Shadow Sword. They had summoned 10 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons, and although they were no match for Shadow Sword, the Berserker couldn't stop them all if they split up. The evil demon's Shadow Sword didn't target could continue to slaughter Zero Wing's members. Hearing Singular Burial's command, Flame Blood had the other 9 evil demons circle Shadow Sword. However, as these evil demons began to move, Cola landed between 3 of them and used Justice Roar, forcing all 3 to focus on him and no one else. The 3 taunted evil demons immediately brandished their claws at Cola. Seeing this, Cola grinned as he raised the one-handed axe in his right hand. Like Shadow Sword's edgeless blade, silver runes illuminated the weapon. Taking a step forward, Kola used Holy Slash. A silver flash sliced at the three evil demons' extended claws. The moment Kola's axe met the monster's claws, the evil demons felt as if a current of electricity shot through them, leaving their arms numb. All three evil demons were forced to retreat by several steps, and the difference between their strength and Kola's was obvious at a glance. Meanwhile, Gentle Snow, Fire Dance, Flying Shadow, Yi Wumian, Turtle Dove, and Rampant Blade suppressed the other 6 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons. The 6 Tier 2 players halted the evil demons' advance, preventing the monsters from targeting Zero Wings Tier 1 players. The spectating powers were stunned to see all 10 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons suppressed. Who are these people? The various major powers and adventurer teams members were curious and awed as they watched Shadow Sword and his companions. They immediately began to look into the identities of these Tier 2 players from Zero Wing. The various large guilds and adventurer teams present were no strangers to Grand Lord-ranked monsters, but they usually needed 100-man teams to raid such monsters. Yet, Shadow Sword and the others actually soloed the evil demons. Moreover, they had the upper hand in the battle. This was simply unbelievable. The moment these various powers received their investigations' results, they were flabbergasted. Aside from Gentle Snow, the other Tier 2 players were practically unknown in God's domain. Although these players had shown up in Zero Wing's past battles, none of them had ever displayed such frightening power. Because of this, the players from these major powers and adventurer teams began to wonder if Shadow Sword and the others had deliberately hidden their strength all this time. But after today, there was no doubt that these players would become famous in God's domain. Their performance today was simply too shocking. While Shadow Sword and the other Tier 2 players suppressed the Grand Lord-ranked evil demons, Zero Wing's other members were free to slaughter Blackwater's players without worry. Aqua Rose, Blackie, Violet Cloud, and Alluring Summer, in particular, struck like humanoid defense turrets. All 4 of them wielded Tier 3 mana staffs, which allowed their spells' power to rival Tier 3 spells. Against Tier 1 players, these spells were one-shot, one-kill attacks. Not even blocking these spells could save the targeted players. When the 4 used AoE spells, each of their attacks could slay dozens of players. Of those present, only Blackwater's Tier 2 experts barely survived Aqua Rose and the others' attacks. However, none of them could approach the forecasters, either, since doing so would be suicidal. As he watched the one-sided battle, Singular Burial's complexion turned ashen, and the corner of his eyes twitched. He had visited the primordial divine ruin this time with his closest aides and experts that had originally belonged to Heaven's Burial. These players were supposed to serve as the foundation of his rise through Blackwater. Now that Zero Wing's members had massacred his subordinates, his chances of rising in his new guild had significantly decreased. Although he wanted to do something to stop the massacre, he had enough trouble with the level 50 youth before him. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't get past the youth's defense. To make matters worse, his opponent was only a Tier 1 berserker, while he was a bona fide Tier 2 ranger. Yet, the berserker's Tier 1 skills had actually repelled his Tier 2 skills. This maddened Singular Burial. On the other hand, Yu Zipping, also known as Silent Blade, grew increasingly excited as he fought Singular Burial. He had never felt this wonderful before. The combination of a Tier 2 mana weapon and the level 50 magic light set had granted him an absolute advantage in basic attributes over his opponent. From time to time, he even caught Singular Burial by surprise when he used his mana weapons ability. In addition, through his battle with Singular Burial, someone who had entered the refinement realm long ago, Yu Zipping was able to recognize many of his flaws. If not for his advantage in basic attributes and Tier 2 mana weapon, the enemy ranger would have likely killed him already. Guild leader, these people from Zero Wing are too powerful. At this rate, we'll be wiped out before the evil beast army arrives, Daybreak Fog, who was similarly entangled in a fierce battle, told Singular Burial anxiously through a private chat. Hearing Daybreak Fog's worry, Singular Burial glanced at Blackwater's members, who were continuously slaughtered. Suddenly, a sense of helplessness doused the killing intent burning in his heart. However, just as Singular Burial was about to respond, he noticed a black figure weaving across the battlefield and killing Blackwater's experts with inhuman speed. The figure moved so quickly that by the time Blackwater's experts noticed someone before them, a blue flash filled their vision. Once the blue flash disappeared, the targeted experts collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Black flame. Singular Burial bellowed with rage, a gut-twisting envy filling his heart as he watched the rapidly moving black figure. Zero Wing was clearly a guild that had been established without a background or backers, yet the guild had gained one powerful expert after another. Fire Dance, Shadow Sword, Flying Shadow, Cola, Violet Cloud, Alluring Summer. Even super guilds sought to recruit these experts, yet they had gathered in Zero Wing. Moreover, the unknown berserker youth before him also possessed immense talent. Singular Burial could not understand why so many obscure experts had gathered in Zero Wing, yet he had failed to recruit even one such expert for himself. While Singular Burial screamed his lungs out, Xueqi vanished from the battlefield. In the next moment, Xueqi reappeared before Singular Burial. Singular Burial. Your era has ended. Xueqi growled as he swung down his sacred sword. Although Singular Burial had responded quickly, Xueqi's appearance had been too abrupt. Even though he had immediately thought of using the Ranger class's escape skill to put some distance between himself and Xueqi, in the face of the Tier 2 taboo skill, Instant Strike, he was a split second too slow to get away. After receiving the one attack, Singular Burial's HP, which was over 50,000, instantly fell to 0. Chapter 1711. Blackwater defeated. Chapter 1711. Blackwater defeated. When Singular Burial reluctantly collapsed and dropped an icy blue longbow on the battlefield, the surrounding Blackwater members were dumbfounded and turned to stare at Xueqi. A moment ago, Singular Burial had 100% of his HP, yet after one of Xueqi's attacks, the Ranger had lost it all. Suddenly, a chilling sensation assaulted Blackwater's members. If even a Tier 2 player like Singular Burial could not withstand a single hit from Xueqi, it went without saying Xueqi could kill Tier 1 players like them with a casual swing of his blade too. Black flame. Falling Fire's expression darkened as he glared at Xueqi. His combat standard was recognized as one of the best in Blackwater. There were only a handful of people in the guild that he had to admit were superior. However, despite having such a high combat standard, not even he was confident in keeping up with and blocking the attack Xueqi had used against Singular Burial. Xueqi's attack was simply too fast, but it wasn't just because of his high attack speed. HS neutral response time and physical acceleration were also ridiculously fast. After heaving a deep sigh, Falling Fire commanded, "Everyone, retreat." Due to Xueqi's display of overwhelming strength, his team members' morale had received a huge boost. Zero Wing's members now fought with more passion and skill than before. In contrast, the morale of Blackwater's members plummeted. Now, this battle's outcome could not be any more obvious. Continuing to fight would only incur more losses for Blackwater. Hearing Falling Fire's command, Blackwater's members immediately turned away from their opponents and fled in every possible direction. Meanwhile, Aqua Rose and Gentle Snow commanded Zero Wing's members to exploit their victory. Seeing that things had gone south for Blackwater, Flame Blood did not dare to linger. He summoned 20 Great Lord-ranked evil demons to buy himself enough time to activate a teleportation scroll. This battle's outcome had truly exceeded his expectations. He had thought that 10 Grand Lord-ranked evil demons would be more than enough to butcher Zero Wing's forces, but he had never expected the small army to have so many monstrous players. Zero Wing. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I will make you pay for this defeat. Flame Blood revealed a sneer as he watched Zero Wing's members charge towards him. He was an evil god's apostle, not a guild member. As long as he escaped capture, he'd always have a chance of making a comeback. Flame Blood sent his 20 Great Lords to stop Zero Wing's members as he activated his teleportation scroll. The teleportation scroll to teleport to the evil god's temple had a 15-second activation process, which was slightly shorter than a normal return scroll. With the power of 20 Great Lords at his side, he could easily buy enough time to get away. However, when the 7th second ticked by, Flame Blood noticed a slowly approaching figure out of the corner of his eye. This figure was none other than Xueqi. Flame Blood couldn't help his growing anxiety as he watched Xueqi approach. Although over 200 yards separated the two, Flame Blood felt as if the Grim Reaper itself had set its sights on him. Faster! I have to get out of here as quickly as possible. For the first time ever, Flameblood felt that the teleportation scroll's activation time was too long. Although Xueqi's approach appeared slow, in reality, he was extremely fast. In just 3 seconds, he had halved the distance between him and Flameblood. Seeing this, Flameblood had no choice but to split 6 of the Great Lord-ranked evil demons from the group, ordering them to hinder Xueqi's advance. However, no matter what kind of attacks the Great Lord-ranked evil demons used, Xueqi avoided them easily. The evil demons couldn't slow Xueqi down in the slightest. When only 2 seconds remained before Flameblood's teleportation scroll activated, Xueqi was still over 30 yards away from the cleric. Seeing this, Flameblood breathed a sigh of relief. Black Flame. I'll get even with you sooner or later. There was no way Xueqi could cross the distance between them unless he could use the same move he had employed to take out Singular Burial earlier. However, the area around Flameblood abruptly darkened, and the mana that fed the teleportation array beneath his feet froze instantly. A moment later, the teleportation array began to disappear. No! How is this possible? Shock and despair flashed in Flameblood's eyes when he realized that his teleportation scroll was no longer an option. Before Flameblood could react, Xueqi shook off the 6 great lords chasing him and appeared before the cleric. Get even with me? Glancing at the cloaked and bandaged cleric before him, Xueqi chuckled and said, You'll have to be able to get away before that can happen. Black Flame. Your forces are now trapped, surrounded by Beast Emperor's evil beast army. If you kill me, Beast Emperor definitely won't let you off the hook. Flameblood hissed as he looked at the smiling swordsman before him. Fearfully he continued, If you want to leave this place alive, I'm your only hope. Flameblood knew full well what Xueqi was capable of. After all, he had personally witnessed Xueqi capture Abandoned Wave and send the man to the War God's temple. To evil gods apostles like himself and Abandoned Wave, getting sent to the War God's temple was game over. Flameblood deeply regretted his actions. Had he known something like this would happen, he would never have followed Singular Burial to the primordial divine ruin. Now that he had been silenced, it was practically impossible to escape Xueqi's clutches. His only hope of getting out of this predicament lay with Beast Emperor's evil beast and demon army. Although Zero Wing's members were absurdly strong, they would definitely fall against 100,000 plus evil beasts and evil demons. The fact that Zero Wing had so effortlessly slaughtered Blackwater's members proved that all of the members in this force were the guild's core members. If these core members were annihilated, it would deal a massive blow to Zero Wing. You're my only hope? Xueqi could not help but laugh. Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? To Beast Emperor, evil gods apostles were like his own limbs. Each one taken from him was a permanent loss. However, since Beast Emperor had dared to cut off Zero Wing's path to fortune, Xueqi had to teach Beast Emperor what it felt like to lose a limb to his blades. Saying so, Xueqi activated Abyssal Bind and restricted Flameblood's movements. He then retrieved a mobile jail from his bag and started to activate it. Black Flame. Are you trying to die? I am one of Beast Emperor's evil gods apostles. Capturing me will only increase Beast Emperor's desire to destroy Zero Wing. Flameblood began to panic when he saw Xueqi activate the mobile jail. He had never thought that Xueqi would be so daring. If he were to be sent to the War God's temple, he truly would be finished. Just as Xueqi was about to entrap Flameblood in the mobile jail, a phantom appeared beside the cleric. This phantom took the form of an indifferent middle-aged man in luxurious, dark gray robes. The man wielded a wooden staff that exuded murky black mist in his right hand, and a pitch-black crown adorned his head. The man radiated an indescribably majestic feeling. Beast Emperor? When Xueqi saw this middle-aged man, the only person that came to his mind was Beast Emperor. However, he was not absolutely certain as he had never actually seen Beast Emperor's true appearance before. That's right. I am Beast Emperor. This should be our second meeting, Beast Emperor said, smiling. I won't mince words with you. Release Flameblood and hand over the evil god's eye in your possession. Do so, and I'll let your forces leave the Orc Empire safely. Refuse, and neither you nor your subordinates will leave the Empire. Your souls will become nourishment for my evil demons. As soon as Beast Emperor finished speaking, the players at the primordial divine ruin noticed a large group of evil beasts and demons approach on the distant horizon. An NPC elder stood above a gigantic evil beast, radiating intense evil energy. Even though the old man was thousands of yards away, everyone outside of the primordial divine ruin could feel his horrific aura. I admit that you are quite powerful, but even if you lock Flame Blood away in the mobile jail, you won't necessarily be able to leave the Orc Empire with him. As long as I kill you, I can free Flame Blood. I will only give you 10 seconds to consider my offer, Beast Emperor said, his expression calm as he looked at Xueqi. A mythic NPC? Xueqi guessed after glancing at the NPC in the distant sky. Revealing a faint smile, he said, like your subordinate, you think too highly of yourself. I will send Flame Blood to the War God's temple. Chapter 1712. The Man Closest to Attaining a Domain. Chapter 1712. The Man Closest to Attaining a Domain. Although Xueqi's tone had been dull, the nearby players could all feel the unyielding determination in his voice. Crazy bastard! How can a guild leader like you exist? As Flame Blood glared at Xueqi, he felt his mental state crumble. Just how much did Xueqi hate him? Xueqi was actually willing to sacrifice over 1,000 zero-wing experts just to finish him off. Black Flame. This is your final chance. You can't take on a mythic NPC. Do you really think that you can escape with your life? If you die at his hands, do you think that the penalty will be as simple as losing a level? Beast Emperor's expression darkened when he heard Xueqi's reply. Do not challenge my patience. Otherwise, I'll bury you here even if I have to waste my contribution points. If the evil god's apostle slots weren't so incredibly precious to his future, and the fact that Xueqi had a small chance of getting away, he wouldn't have wasted so many words on the swordsman. He simply would have sent his evil beasts and evil demons to slaughter Zero Wings members and devour them. Challenge your patience? Xueqi could not help but laugh at Beast Emperor. How many times has your evil god's temple targeted Zero Wings territories? You've even gone as far as to hunt down my guild members. Have you ever considered Zero Wings' patience? Saying so, Xueqi swung his sword at Flame Blood, lowering the cleric's HP to a critical level. He then activated the mobile jail and entrapped the bound cleric. You! Beast Emperor gnashed his teeth in rage as he watched Flame Blood disappear into the mobile jail. Suddenly, the evil beasts and evil demons standing on the distant horizon released deafening roars. They then charged toward the primordial divine ruin. The various powers' upper echelons wore somber expressions as they watched the 100,000-plus evil beasts and evil demons surge towards them. These evil beasts and evil demons were far from just random monsters. Every one of them was level 60 or higher, and the majority of them were chieftain rank and above. Only a small number were elites and special elites. Moreover, 8 of them were mythic ranked. Such a force was more than enough to destroy a town, not to mention an army of fewer than 2,000 experts. When the evil beasts and evil demons began their charge, the NPC elder flew into the sky and waved his staff. Suddenly, a beam of gray light shot out of the staff and toward the clouds above the old man. When the beam of light was roughly 100 yards above the NPC, it burst. Ripples of gray light spread across the sky, turning the once blue view a dull gray. It looked as if evil energy had enveloped the entire world. What's going on? Why can't I use my return scroll? Wait, that's not right. I can't use my instantaneous teleportation scroll, either. Isn't that NPC too powerful? He's actually sealed off this entire region. Zero Wing is definitely dead now. Utter shock filled the spectating powers at the primordial divine ruin as they watched the NPC elder fly towards the ruin. With their ability to teleport stolen from them, Zero Wing's only way of escaping this location was to rely on their own 2 feet. However, trying to break through the blockade of 100,000-plus evil beasts and evil demons was practically impossible. The players from the various major powers also began to worry for their own safety. Like Zero Wing's members, they were now trapped here, and their fate was no longer in their own hands. If Beast Emperor wanted to, he could definitely have every player at the primordial divine ruin killed. Big Sis Melody. What is going through Black Flame's mind? He's actually willing to trade Zero Wing's 1,000 plus experts to capture a single player. Does he hate Beast Emperor that much? A girl standing amidst the Sacred Temple's team asked curiously as she watched Xueqi, who was arranging Zero Wing's army into a defensive formation. The girl had long, curly, light blue hair and a lithe but curvy body. She wielded an emerald staff and was clad in white, silken robes. Although this girl looked quite weak and delicate, she had actually reached level 51. Even in the Sacred Temple, her level put her at the very top of the guild. Though, her aura was far more frightening than the girl's level. However, the intensity of her aura was not just a result of her powerful basic attributes. Her tier and life rating also contributed. When the Sacred Temple's surrounding experts looked at this girl, awe and reverence filled their gaze. This girl was the Sacred Temple's new prodigy, Blue Jade, and she had even received high praise from the guild leader, stating that she even had the potential to command a domain in the future. Precisely because of her talents, Blue Jade had been dispatched to the Primordial Divine Ruin so that she could improve further in Primordial City. I don't know what Black Flame is thinking, but you should pay close attention to his fights. The Secret Pavilion has recognized Black Flame as the person closest to grasping a domain. Watching him should help you quite a bit, Quiet Melody said as she looked at Xueqi. Isn't Miracle Dragon the person closest to reaching the domain realm? Blue Jade asked in astonishment. Miracle Dragon is old news. The various superpowers have already recognized Black Flame as the person closest to reaching the domain realm, Quiet Melody patiently explained. The techniques Black Flame has displayed thus far are simply amazing. He has even defeated domain realm experts. The various superpowers have even wondered whether or not he has already obtained a domain, but after a detailed investigation, they concluded that he's only as strong as domain realm experts. He doesn't actually have a domain yet, though he is extremely close to obtaining one. He can actually rival domain realm experts without a domain? He's actually that powerful? Blue Jade was skeptical about Quiet Melody's claim. If Xueqi were so impressive, he should recognize his situation for what it was. Yet, Xueqi had made the most unbelievable decision, provoking Beast Emperor instead of saving his companions' lives. While Quiet Melody and Blue Jade discussed Xueqi, the other powers' upper echelons grew nervous. Beast Emperor's monster army was getting closer, and now, it was less than 1,000 yards away. 2 level 80 mythic evil demons and 6 level 80 mythic ranked evil beasts led the monster army. Just looking at these monsters, even from so far away, made these players shudder. Against such a powerful army of monsters, Zero Wing's forces would likely face annihilation even if the guild had tens of thousands of experts and hundreds of thousands of elite players present. Even if Zero Wing could summon 3 more high demons, there was no escaping its fate. Although the Baphomets Zero Wing had summoned were indeed incredibly strong, the army of evil beasts and evil demons the guild faced this time was much stronger. There were plenty of great lords and grand lords in this force. By the time the high demons defeated the mythic evil demons and mythic evil beasts, the great lords and grand lords would have devoured Zero Wing's members already. Black Flame. Pay for your foolishness. Beast Emperor, who followed the situation at the Primordial Divine Ruin from Ancient Rock City's Evil God's Temple, sneered. He had spent 7,000 Evil God's Temple contribution points for the mythic NPC to seal the Primordial Divine Ruins map. This seal prevented players from both teleporting out and physically crossing the map's borders. The Evil God's Temple contribution points were no less precious than the War God's Temple merit points. With 7,000 merit points, players could purchase a high-quality epic item from the War God's Temple. Yet, he had spent so many points just to prevent Xueqi's escape. Although the sealing barrier was not particularly strong, it would not be easy to break out of, either. During the time it took for Zero Wing to destroy the barrier, his evil beasts and evil demons could annihilate the guild's army several times over. The 100,000 plus evil demons and evil beasts grew closer to Zero Wing's army, and seeing this, the guild's members couldn't help but grow nervous. They felt stifled as they watched the monsters approach, the auras the monsters radiated becoming increasingly frightening. However, when less than 200 yards separated both sides, a magic barrier appeared and enveloped Zero Wing's army. This barrier was the result of none other than the movement-type defensive magic array. Good. Summoners. Summon the divine beasts. Xueqi commanded as he stared at the monster army before him. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.